Chapter 3091. When Pai Lupi and Theta Wang entered the Black Tortoise world, they were already stronger than the creatures of the Black Tortoise world. Now they were still managing the affairs of the Black Tortoise world with Big Black Wolf and Black Panther brothers. They could freely enter the Devil's Land and enjoy better resources than before. So, it was natural for the two of them to step into the Undying Realm. The breakthrough of the two also indicated a good sign, because soon, there would definitely be more people stepping into the Undying Realm. As for the power of law, Qin Feiyang didn't force the creatures of the Black Tortoise world, because until the last moment, he would never let the creatures of the Black Tortoise world fight outside. As long as the creatures of the Black Tortoise world could live peacefully and not bring him trouble, he was already very satisfied. In the blink of an eye, more than 170 years had passed outside. Who knew how many years had passed in the Black Tortoise world? Under Qin Feiyang's hard work, not only did he comprehend the third profound of the law of light, but he also successfully grasped 4 types of law power. Moreover, his cultivation had also stepped into the small success Undying Realm. It could be said that, in these years of seclusion, he had gained a lot. Now, he had grasped 7 types of law power. Among them, he had comprehended the third profound of the law of light and the law of thunder. He had also comprehended the second profound of the law of cause and effect. Coupled with his minor Undying Realm cultivation, he was undoubtedly more confident in facing people below the Sovereign Realm in the future. Outside, suddenly, there was a burst of laughter. Qin Feiyang got up and walked out of the cultivation room suspiciously. He saw Frenzy and White-Eyed Wolf sitting together in the hall, their faces full of smiles. Seeing Qin Feiyang walk out, the man and wolf couldn't help but be stunned, then said, "Come and sit for a while. Aren't you all in seclusion?" Qin Feiyang walked over and looked at them suspiciously. "It's not that I'm bored, so I came out to get some air," White-Eyed Wolf said with a smile. "Get some air?" Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said, "Looking at your expressions, you must have encountered something good. Tell me, what is it? Are you blind?" "I don't know. Let's see our cultivation." White-Eyed Wolf glared at him. Cultivation? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Looking at the man and the wolf, he suddenly understood. He smiled and said, "So you have also entered the small success imperishable realm." "Of course." The White-Eyed Wolf smiled proudly. Qin Feiyang pursed his lips and said, "That's not a big deal." "Of course it's not a big deal." Madman took over the topic and chuckled. "My gains from these years of seclusion, if I tell you, you'll be shocked. No, you'll be so shocked that you won't have any confidence in front of me in the future." So exaggerated. Qin Feiyang was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled expectantly and said, "Tell me about it." "First of all, I've already comprehended the third profundity of another type of law that none of you know about," Madman said. "It's not bad." Qin Feiyang nodded. In other words, the madman had already comprehended the third profundity of his 3 laws. That was indeed amazing. Secondly, through the battle secret technique, I comprehended another type of law, the law of war. Madman smiled proudly. Qin Feiyang was stunned. "How is it? Are you envious? I'm now a super genius who has grasped 4 types of law." Madman laughed proudly. Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. He asked, "Is that all?" "What? That's all? What do you mean by that? Isn't that scary enough?" Madman frowned. Qin Feiyang was speechless. He looked at the White-Eyed Wolf and asked, "What about you? Other than cultivation, what else did you gain?" "My gains are not something you can compare to." The White-Eyed Wolf shook his head leisurely. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang was confused. "Don't worry, you'll know in the future." The White-Eyed Wolf smiled mysteriously. Qin Feiyang couldn't wait to give him a slap. Madman also rolled his eyes at the White-Eyed Wolf. This guy only knows how to be mysterious. He then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Wait a minute, what's with your attitude just now? Could it be that your gains are greater than mine?" "It's better if you don't know." Qin Feiyang coughed dryly and said with a smile. "What? Can you scare me, silly?" Madman wasn't convinced. "That's not the case. But it might be like what you said, scaring you so much that you won't have confidence in front of me in the future." Qin Feiyang grinned. How is that possible? Hurry up and say it. If you don't, I won't let you off. Madman said. You're the one who asked me to say it. Don't fall out with me when the time comes. Qin Feiyang looked at him mockingly. If you don't say it, I will fall out with you. Madman stared at Qin Feiyang fiercely. All right, I'll say it. For the law of light, I have comprehended the third profound. Qin Feiyang said. What else? Madman asked. Although I haven't comprehended the third profound, I can feel that I'm not far from it. Qin Feiyang said. That's it. Then you're still inferior to me. What are you so proud of? Madman sneered. I haven't finished yet. Why are you in such a hurry? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and smiled. I have also comprehended the law of war through the battle symbol formula. Madman was stunned. Doesn't that mean that Qin Feiyang has also grasped 4 types of law? It's fine, it's fine. Although Qin Feiyang has also grasped 4 types of law, he hasn't comprehended the third profound, so he still has the upper hand. Madman comforted himself. Qin Feiyang continued. In addition, through the battle symbol formula, I have also comprehended the law of slaughter. What? Madman raised his head and stared at Qin Feiyang, his eyes full of shock. Since he has already comprehended the law of slaughter, doesn't that mean that he has grasped 5 types of law? White-Eyed Wolf was also very surprised. This kid is really amazing. Mastering 5 types of law at the minor imperishable realm. If this were to spread out, who knows how many geniuses would be scared to death. In addition, I have also comprehended the law of force through the return symbol formula. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. And the law of force? Madman's eyes widened, and he suddenly felt terrible. This bastard has already grasped 6 types of law. The heavens were unfair. He had given him something as terrifying as the slaughter domain, and had even given him so much power of law. Why? It's okay. Qin Feiyang looked at Madman and asked with a smile. Madman braced himself and nodded. It's okay, it's okay. Qin Feiyang raised the corner of his mouth and said, I have also grasped the law of wind through the movement symbol formula. What? Madman suddenly stood up and glared at Qin Feiyang. What? I have a feud with you for killing my father. Qin Feiyang frowned. Yes, I have a feud with you for killing my father. I want a duel with you. Madman roared. 7 types. 7 types of law. How were they going to let him live? Although he had already comprehended the third profound of 3 of the 4 types of law, compared to Qin Feiyang's 7 types of law, it was on a completely different level. 6 types of law already had the qualifications to step into the great perfection sovereign realm, let alone 7 types. Haha. Looking at Madman's flustered and exasperated appearance, White-Eyed Wolf couldn't help but laugh at his misfortune. Laugh your ass. You don't even have 1 type of law, and you have the qualifications to laugh at me? Madman immediately glared fiercely. White-Eyed Wolf's expression stiffened, and he said angrily, Do you believe that I won't take care of you right now? Come, I'm not afraid of you. Madman said angrily. The ingrate crossed his legs and looked like a second uncle. He shook his head and said, Forget it, I won't argue with you. Madman's face turned black. How is it? Are you shocked? Qin Feiyang looked at Madman with a smile and asked. What a joke. Who do you think I am? How can such a small commotion affect me? Isn't it just 7 types of law? Just you wait, I'll surpass you in a minute. Madman said and turned to run towards the cultivation room. What are you doing? Qin Feiyang quickly asked. Seclusion. Madman shouted without turning his head. Don't. Qin Feiyang quickly got up and pulled Madman with a smile. There's something, let's discuss. I'm not free. Madman shook off Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang was speechless. You're wrong, you forced me to say it. Then you really told the truth? Madman raged. We are brothers, so of course I have to tell the truth. If I hide it from you, how can I be brothers? Qin Feiyang smiled. Wrong, I'm not your brother, I'm your senior granduncle. Madman said. What? Qin Feiyang was stunned. I'm from the same generation as Qin Batian. Since you call him ancestor, then you should call me senior granduncle. Is that wrong? Madman looked at him in delight. He finally won back some ground. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Logically speaking, it was true. Because his ancestor was once a disciple of Nine Heaven Palace and was from the same generation as Madman. Even a kid knows how to respect the old. Call me senior granduncle. Madman put his hands behind his back and looked at Qin Feiyang like he was an old school person. Scram. Qin Feiyang kicked him. What kind of person was this? Madman shouted angrily. You even dare to hit your senior granduncle. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him and returned to his seat. Yi Tian told me to tell you that he will be waiting for you at any time. Madman was slightly taken aback. As he walked towards Qin Feiyang, he asked, Is he going to fight me? Yes. After all, you killed Yi Yuan. Qin Feiyang nodded. That's because he deserved it. However, I don't know much about this Yi Tian. I only heard about him from Xiao Xian. What kind of person is he? Madman was suspicious. He's not bad and he's quite strong. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. It's rare to hear you praise someone, then I really have to meet him. Madman's interest was piqued and he asked, This is what you want to discuss? No. 2 things. First, Elder Hua invited us to Demon Hall. Second, the Deputy Alliance leader wants to ask for peace. Qin Feiyang said. Ask for peace? Madman instantly frowned. That's impossible, right? Would someone like him ask for peace? There must be something going on. I won't hide it from you. I think so too. Qin Feiyang nodded. Chapter 3092. Then do you think we should reconcile with him? The Mad Wolf asked. Reconcile? That's impossible. This person wants to kill us so much, but he suddenly reconciles with us. No matter how you look at it, it doesn't seem right. I even suspect that this might be another conspiracy. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Why are there so many conspiracies all day long? You've already shown him the castle. What else does he dare to do? The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. That might not be the case. Some people are just too daring. Let's talk about it later. If it's really as we guessed and he's colluding with the Blood Hall, why would he be afraid of us with the 3 sovereign weapons? Qin Feiyang shook his head. The white-eyed wolf paused for a moment before nodding. That's true. So we can't be careless with this person. What I want to discuss with you is whether to go to the Demon Palace or not. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The Mad Wolf pondered for a moment before sighing. To be honest, entering the Demon Palace is only beneficial for us, but I'm still a little worried about their motives. The castle and the Black Tortoise world. The white-eyed wolf asked. That's right. What a joke. A sovereign weapon and an independent world. Who wouldn't be tempted? If their motives are really impure, then when we enter the Demon Palace, we won't even know how we died. The Mad Wolf was a little worried. However, this old man who has always been kind and sincere in front of us. I can't see what his motives are. The white-eyed wolf frowned. If you can see through it, then how can he be called an old fox? Let's talk about it later. An old antique like him who has lived for countless years, and is the overlord of the Eastern continent. What hasn't he experienced? If he deliberately tries to hide it, it's really hard for us to find out. The Mad Wolf sighed. Senior brother Mad Wolf is right. We don't know anything about the Demon Palace, so it's not wrong to be cautious. Then let's wait and see. If they really have evil intentions, sooner or later they won't be able to hold back and expose themselves. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment before smiling. That's right. Let's wait. Let's see how they react. Madman nodded. All right then. Qin Feiyang stood up and said with a smile. Shall we go for a walk? Now that you've grasped the power of 7 laws, of course you're in the mood to stroll around. Madman rolled his eyes. Don't be like that. With your comprehension ability, isn't comprehending a type of law a matter of minutes? I'm not going there for a stroll. I want to take a look at the Azure Wave Snow Mountain. Qin Feiyang said. To the Azure Wave Snow Mountain? Madman was slightly taken aback. This was the headquarters of the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, How is it? Are you interested? Why didn't you say you were going to Mount Songlan earlier? Let's go now. These old fogies dare to go against us. If I don't wash the Rogue Cultivator Alliance with blood, I won't be called Madman Mo anymore. Madman chuckled. The so-called bloodbath was, of course, not to kill them all, but to rob the Rogue Cultivator Alliance of their resources. As the only superpower in the Eastern continent that was second only to the Demon Royal Halls, the Demon Royal Halls would definitely have countless resources. Big Brother will go too. Big Brother will go too. When the white-eyed wolf heard this, he was also excited. Qin Feiyang looked at the man and the wolf speechlessly. Why didn't he see them so enthusiastic when they encountered other things? However, Madman's suggestion was not bad. Anyway, the little brat was urging him to get some resources. 2 men and 1 wolf walked out of the castle. Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly revealed a trace of surprise. What's wrong? Madman was suspicious. Are they all so fast? Qin Feiyang frowned. For example, Mu Tianyang, Zhao Tailai, Demon Ancestor, Blood Qilin, and the other beasts had basically stepped into the initial undead realm. Just kidding. They cultivate here every day, how can they not be fast? Big Brother also heard that Mu Tianyang, Demon Ancestor, Dong Zhenyang Mu Qing, these bastards have already comprehended the power of law. The white-eyed wolf said. Qin Feiyang was taken aback for a moment and asked, what law? I'm not sure. They are still mysterious and don't want others to know. The white-eyed wolf shook his head. Let them be. Anyway, our relationship is still quite harmonious. Qin Feiyang smiled. And, don't forget that Mu Tianyang still has a woman who hates you to the core. The white-eyed wolf said. Woman? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. Guosweki. The white-eyed wolf reminded him. Qin Feiyang patted his head and shook his head. If you didn't remind me, I really would have forgotten about this woman. Guosweki had always been by Mu Tianyang's side. Mu Tianyang once said that he wanted to train this woman. All these years he had never seen this woman appear. She must have been hiding in Mu Tianyang's space treasure. In other words, this Guosweki was also enjoying the resources of the Black Tortoise realm, as well as the time array. Why don't we go and force Mu Tianyang to hand it over? The white-eyed wolf's eyes flashed with a cold light. Forget it. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Although it was a potential threat, he believed that both Guosweki and Mu Tianyang understood the current situation. He was not sure about the future, but the two of them definitely did not dare to act rashly. Because the Black Tortoise realm was not only guarded by the 2 ancestors, but also 54 divine generals. They could not be presumptuous. Moreover, after all these years of cultivation, the 54 divine generals had almost comprehended the power of law. This force was completely enough to intimidate Mu Tianyang and Guosweki. Wait. Why are Xiaoyuan and the others still at the greater imperishable realm? Qin Feiyang looked at the courtyard of the 54 divine generals. There was an aura in each courtyard, but they were all at the greater imperishable realm. He remembered that before the war with the dragons, they had already stepped into the greater imperishable realm. Nonsense. How long have we been in the Sky Cloud realm? It's only been 200 years. Look at us, from the initial imperishable realm to the greater imperishable realm. According to the time outside, it took more than 170 years. Even we need that long, let alone the greater imperishable realm to the great imperishable realm. Moreover, they have to take a lot of time to comprehend the power of law. I estimate that it will take a few hundred years for them to all step into the great imperishable realm. The madman said. A few hundred years? Then by that time, we will probably have broken through to the greater imperishable realm. The white-eyed wolf said. That's normal. The further you go, the longer it will take. Look at Theta Wang and Pai Lupi. They have already stepped into the half-step imperishable realm, and are about to catch up with us. Even Long Tianyu, Qin Chen, and Wang Xiaojia have now stepped into the great perfection realm. The madman shook his head. Yes. Not just anyone, but Long Tianyu and the other 2 will catch up with us sooner or later. But the breakthrough of Theta Wang and Pai Lupi is really good news for the Black Tortoise realm. Everything is difficult at the beginning. As long as one person steps into the imperishable realm, there will be a second and a third. Qin Feiyang smiled. The white-eyed wolf and the madman nodded in agreement. Just like the power of law, It was the most difficult to comprehend it at the beginning. Unless it was like Qin Feiyang, who comprehended the karma law, light law, and thunder law and entered a state of epiphany. But this kind of epiphany could only be encountered and not sought. Therefore, one had to rely on oneself to slowly comprehend it, which required a very long process. Take Qin Feiyang for example. Even with the 6-word divine formula as a reference, it took him more than 100 years to comprehend the 4 great laws. If there was no reference, it would definitely take even longer. And more than 100 years outside. How many years would it take in the Black Tortoise realm? Therefore, the beginning of the past was difficult. After comprehending the power of laws, it would be easier for him to comprehend the profound divine ability later on. Because after you comprehended the power of law, you would already have some understanding of the profound meaning of the power of law. It was like planting a seed, and after it sprouted, it only needed to be watered and fertilized, and it would slowly grow. Wuxia City. More than 100 years had passed, and it was still bustling. Outside the city, 2 middle-aged burly men walked slowly towards the city gate with a large gray dog. It was Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf. Now that everyone knew that they had a sovereign weapon, they naturally couldn't just run into Wuxia City like this. Otherwise it would definitely cause a commotion. When the 2 men and 1 wolf walked to the city gate, they found that the wanted posters on the city gate had been removed, and the people entering and leaving were no longer checked. The 4 city guards were so bored that they were dozing off. Are they really going to reconcile with us? The madman was surprised. Don't be fooled by the illusion. I believe in my premonition. Qin Feiyang glanced at the 4 city guards indifferently and entered the city. It's been more than 100 years and Qin Feiyang and Madman Emo still haven't come out. Could it be that they have disappeared? Don't such big shots come and go without a trace? It's difficult to see their glory. As soon as they entered the city, the 2 men and 1 wolf heard a lot of discussions. Some were sitting in tea houses drinking tea. Some were sitting in taverns drinking wine, and they began to talk when they had nothing to do. You have all become big shots. The white-eyed wolf laughed sinisterly. I want to be unknown, but my strength doesn't allow me to. The madman shook his head and sighed, looking as lonely as snow, which made the white-eyed wolf gnash his teeth in hatred. Go, go, go. Let's go to Heavenly Joy Pavilion. Not only do they have their signature wine Immortal Intoxication, but also Heavenly Mountain Dew. If we're late, there won't be any left. After a while, several youths walked past the 2 men and 1 wolf, talking as they walked. Heavenly Joy Restaurant? Qin Feiyang and the madman were stunned. Wasn't this the restaurant of that woman? Why did Wuxia City have one as well? Let's go take a look, the madman thought. Qin Feiyang nodded. He still cared a lot about Yin Xiang. Not only was his talent outstanding, but he also had a terrifying killing intent protecting him. His identity was definitely not simple. The 2 men and 1 wolf followed the youths and soon arrived at the central area of Wuxia City. A luxurious restaurant stood on the side of the street. At the entrance, there was an endless stream of people entering and exiting, and the waiters of the restaurant were so busy that they were sweating profusely. Isn't this the young master of the Zhuo family? Please come in. Suddenly, a waiter ran to the side of a white-clothed youth, his face full of respect. Behind the white-clothed youth, there were 2 guards. These 2 guards were the guards of the City Lord Manor. What? The young master of the Zhuo family. Qin Feiyang and the madman were stunned and hurriedly looked at the white-clothed youth. Chapter 3093. This was a young man around 18 or 19 years old. He was about 1.8 meters tall, and had a gentle and refined appearance. Moreover, his cultivation was only at the combat emperor level. Is there a private room inside? The young man seemed to be a little timid as he looked at the waiter and asked. I'm sorry you came too late and didn't make a reservation. The private rooms are all full. If you don't mind, you can make do in the main hall. The waiter smiled flatteringly. Despite the waiter's flattery, the young man still looked a little timid. He waved his hand and said, I don't mind. Then please come in. The waiter hurriedly led the young man into the restaurant, and the 2 guards followed closely behind. What's going on? Frenzy was suspicious. How would I know? Qin Feiyang turned his gaze and looked at the black-clothed young man beside him. He asked suspiciously, "Brother, how many Zhou families are there in Wuxia City?" The black-clothed young man was slightly stunned. He glared at Qin Feiyang and said speechlessly, "Aren't you talking nonsense? Of course, there's only one Zhou family." "Vice City Lord Zhou Tianqing?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Yes." The black-clothed young man nodded. Qin Feiyang said in astonishment, "Then this young master of the Zhou family, isn't he Zhou Tianqing's son?" "Yes. Otherwise, who is qualified to be called the young master of the Zhou family?" The black-clothed young man nodded. "That can't be right. Why didn't I know that the Zhou family has a young master?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Zhou Tianqing's son had already died in their hands, and he didn't hear Zhou Xiaoxian mention that she had a younger brother. "You're not from Wuxia City?" The black-clothed young man looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "To be honest, brother, we're from Wuxia City." "No wonder you don't know this young master of the Zhou family." The black-clothed young man nodded and asked, "Then you guys are also here because of his reputation?" "Because of his reputation?" Qin Feiyang frenzy, and White-Eyed Wolf's eyes were filled with confusion. "It's Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo. You don't know, but right now many people in the Wuxia City are here because of them. They want to see their elegant demeanor." The black-clothed young man said. Qin Feiyang and the other two, as well as the White-Eyed Wolf, were speechless. They had actually become famous. Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a smile, "Yes, yes, yes. We came because of your reputation." "Then don't hold too much hope. They haven't appeared since that battle more than 100 years ago. I reckon they have already left the Wuxia City." The black-clothed young man shook his head. "I see." Qin Feiyang revealed a look of disappointment, then said, "Then what's the matter with the Zhou family's young master?" "Although I have never been to Fenghai City before, I have heard that the Zhou family's heirs were all killed by Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo? Indeed. However, more than 50 years ago, the Vice City Lord gave birth to another son, the young master of the Zhou family," the black-clothed young man said. "I see." Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. He was born more than 50 years ago, no wonder he was only a combat emperor. But the appearance of the Zhou family's young master for the Vice City Lord, I don't know whether it's a blessing or a curse. The black-clothed young man shook his head and sighed. "Why do you say that?" Qin Feiyang and the other two, as well as the White-Eyed Wolf, all had a look of confusion. "Because this young master is too weak, too afraid of trouble, a complete coward. Think about it, as the son of the Vice City Lord, with such a personality, how can he take on important responsibilities in the future?" The black-clothed young man said. Qin Feiyang and the other two, as well as the madman, nodded. "But it's strange. Look, the previous Vice City Lord's heirs were all arrogant and despotic, committing all kinds of crimes. But why would the son born this time have such a personality? You don't know, but some people are even privately discussing whether he is Zhou Tianqing's biological son or not," the black-clothed young man said in a low voice. "You can't say that. This is actually quite good. At least the people of Wuxia City won't be bullied like before." Qin Feiyang smiled. "That's true. Wuxia City is much more peaceful now than before." The black-clothed young man nodded. "So everything has two sides. All right, let's go in and have a few drinks, brother. Do you want to join us?" Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. "No need. I'm just passing by." The black-clothed young man waved his hand and smiled, then turned and strode away. Qin Feiyang and the other two, as well as the White-Eyed Wolf, looked at each other, and also walked towards the restaurant. "Two masters, please come in." A waiter immediately came up to welcome them. "Is this emperor not a prince?" The White-Eyed Wolf suddenly frowned. The waiter was slightly stunned, and when he saw the cultivation of the White-Eyed Wolf, he couldn't see through it. He smiled and said, "Yes, yes, yes, three masters, please come in." "That's more like it." The White-Eyed Wolf stood up and swaggered into the restaurant. Looking at his comical appearance, the waiters behind him couldn't help but snicker. "Three masters, there are no more private rooms, so I'll have to trouble you to make do in the hall. There's an empty table over there, please." The waiter leading the way pointed to an empty table in the corner and smiled. No need. Madman waved his hand and went straight to another table. It was the table where the Zhuo family's young master was sitting. He was alone, and 2 guards stood by his side, carefully protecting him. Don't go. Seeing this, the waiter hurriedly stopped them. At the same time, the 2 guards also looked at Madman, with a trace of vigilance in their eyes. It's just drinking. Why are you so nervous? Madman casually walked to the table and sat across from the Zhuo family's young master. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other, then followed and sat at the side. Madman looked at the Zhuo family's young master and asked with a smile, "Young master, do you mind if we join?" "This," the Zhuo family's young master stammered, not daring to look at the 2 guards and the white-eyed wolf. "This personality really won't do." Madman mumbled, "The 3 of you, our young master doesn't like to be with strangers, so please leave immediately." The 2 guards walked forward and spoke in a seemingly polite manner. "I didn't ask you." Madman glanced at the guards before looking at the Zhuo family's young master. He revealed a smile that he thought was friendly. "Do we look like bad people to you? We don't, so don't be afraid." The Zhuo family's young master looked around before looking at the 2 guards and nodding. "All right, you guys can sit here." "Young master, you can't." The 2 guards were anxious. "It's fine." The Zhuo family's young master shook his head. The 2 guards looked at each other with a hint of helplessness in their eyes. They didn't chase Qin Feiyang and company away, and returned to the Zhuo family's young master's side, carefully guarding against Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. Looking at the waiter again. Although this young master was a little timid, but with his back there, how could a waiter like him dare to neglect him? Therefore, seeing that the Zhuo family's young master didn't object, the waiter heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. "What do the 3 of you need?" "Wine dishes, all the best, and quickly." Madman waved his hand generously. "All right." The waiter nodded and turned to leave. Next, Madman didn't say anything else. He held his chin with both hands and sized up the Zhuo family's young master. This gaze made the Zhuo family's young master very uncomfortable. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang transmitted, "Senior brother, do you have any thoughts about your brother-in-law?" "Of course. How can my brother-in-law be such a timid person? Isn't this embarrassing me?" Madman thought. "Then what do you want to do?" Qin Feiyang wanted to laugh. Madman rubbed his chin and pondered. The white-eyed wolf glanced at the Zhuo family's young master and teased, "Little fellow, if you're so timid, why did you come to the restaurant to play?" The Zhuo family's young master shrunk his neck and muttered with grievance, "I didn't want to, but father forced me to come." "What the hell? Zhuo Tianqing forced you to come to the restaurant? What the hell?" The white-eyed wolf was stunned. "Please show some respect to the Vice City Lord and don't call him by his name." One of the guards immediately looked at the white-eyed wolf and frowned. "Isn't a name meant to be called? If not, then what's the name?" The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. The guard's gaze turned cold. "Don't be offended, don't be offended. This damn dog is like this," shooting his mouth off. Qin Feiyang quickly waved his hand and said with an apologetic smile, "You're the damn dog, your whole family are damn dogs." The white-eyed wolf immediately glared at Qin Feiyang. "You can scold me, but don't scold my family. Besides, you're also my family, so you're scolding yourself." Qin Feiyang's face darkened. "That's true. Yes, I'm scolding you, damn dog." The white-eyed wolf cursed again and again. Qin Feiyang was speechless. Madman finally opened his mouth and asked the Zhuo family's young master, "What's your name?" The Zhuo family's young master was stunned and quickly said, "My name is Zhuo Xiaoqing, mature and steady." "Is that so? It seems that your father hoped that you wouldn't be arrogant and domineering like your brother, and be a mature and steady person, but he didn't expect you to be so timid. Your father probably forced you to come to the restaurant, because he wanted to train your courage in a crowded place," Madman said. The 2 guards looked at each other, and a hint of surprise flashed in their eyes. Looking at the reaction of the 2, Madman was sure that Zhuo Xiaoqing was really here to train his courage. Hearing this, Zhuo Xiaoqing hurriedly said, "I'm not timid, I just don't like to interact with people, especially in this kind of noisy place." "If this isn't timid, then what is?" Madman shook his head. I. Zhuo Xiaoqing seemed to be unconvinced, but he didn't dare to argue with Madman, so he lowered his head in silence. The wine and dishes are here. At this time, the waiter ran over with 5 or 6 dishes and 6 jugs of wine. 3 jugs of immortal drunken wine, 3 jugs of heavenly Mountain Dew. Looking at the heavenly Mountain Dew, Madman's face revealed a trace of fear. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at him in confusion. There won't be any spirit-breaking powder in here, right? Madman sent a sound transmission. The corner of the man and the wolf's mouth twitched. Last time when the city lord plotted against them, he used this heavenly Mountain Dew. Therefore, Madman now had some side effects. However, a fearless madman was actually afraid of the poison in the wine. If this got out, people would laugh their teeth off. Wait, the power of evil can cure hundreds of poisons. What is Lousy afraid of? Madman patted his head again, held the wine jug and gulped it down. The white-eyed wolf also couldn't wait to taste the wine jug. It was also a guy who loved wine, but it wasn't to the extent of being crazy like the 5-clawed golden dragon and Huai. Chapter 3094. Awesome. Madman laughed loudly. Isn't it just drinking? What's so good about it? Zhuo Xiaoqing looked at him in confusion. You don't understand. Madman shook his head. How could this feeling of being immune to poison not feel good? Everyone, please be quiet. Suddenly, a round fatso weighing 200 pounds walked out from a room on the 2nd floor. Qin Feiyang looked up with a trace of suspicion in his eyes. I am the manager of Win Sea City's Tianyue restaurant. Thank you for your support over the years. Today, all the dishes are on the menu, so please eat and drink to your heart's content. The manager smiled. Really? Someone asked with joy. Of course it's true. The manager nodded and said with a smile. And our tower master specially came from Cloud Sea City to play a song for everyone. Thank you for your help and encouragement to our Tianyue restaurant. Tower master? Everyone was stunned for a moment, and then many people revealed admiration in their eyes. Ding dong. At that moment, a string of zither music sounded in the room behind the manager, and the lingering sound was intoxicating. Old Qin, it seems to be that woman. Madman transmitted his voice. Yes, Qin Feiyang nodded. They had heard the zither music of the Tianyue restaurant's tower master in Wind City, so it was easy to distinguish. Then do you think Yun Xiang has it? Madman transmitted his voice. I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Then let's go and take a look. Madman sneered, got up, took a step forward, and instantly landed beside the manager on the 2nd floor. The manager was slightly stunned, and before he could react, Madman kicked the door open, and the zither music stopped abruptly. What is he doing? So rude. The person who was intoxicated by the zither music immediately glared at Madman standing at the door. The manager's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly went forward. Brother, what are you doing? It has nothing to do with you. Madman glanced at him and stepped into the room. He saw a woman in white standing in the room, playing the zither with both hands. At this moment, she was also looking at Madman in astonishment. Madman glanced at the woman, and then at the entire room. Other than women, there was no one else. Tower Master. The steward followed in as well, his face filled with anxiety. I'm fine. The Tower Lord of Heavenly Joy Tower waved his hand. Then he looked at Madman and frowned. You are too rude. Manners? The madman smiled in disdain and said, You're alone? Yin Xiang didn't come with you? The Tower Master of Heavenly Joy Tower was stunned. Because the madman had changed his appearance, she couldn't recognize him. Your Tianyue Tower is not bad. You even opened a branch in the Wind Sea City. The madman stepped in front of the woman, and their faces were just inches apart. He grinned and said, Did you pay me a protection fee? Protection fee? The woman was stunned. That's right. If you don't pay me protection fees, do you still want to operate here? Madman chuckled. Ugh. The woman was speechless. But then she looked at the madman in surprise. Wasn't this someone's catchphrase? Could it be? What? Looking at me like this, could it be that you have taken a fancy to my peerless appearance? The madman smiled in ridicule. The woman was slightly taken aback. She quickly got up and her cheeks turned red. Only then did she notice that she was too close to the madman. Their faces were completely touching. But I'm sorry, I'm already taken. I won't take a fancy to you. The madman chuckled. Shameless. The woman sneered. Dada at this time. A group of men ran over fiercely. The madman turned his head and said playfully, "What? You still want to fight?" Seeing this, the woman's face changed slightly. She quickly waved to the steward and the group of men beside her and said, "You guys go out first." If it was really that madman, he might tear down her Tianhua tower. But the steward looked at the madman. "It's fine." The woman shook her head. "All right." The steward nodded and left the room with a group of men. He closed the door. "What's the situation? He's still staying inside? What's their relationship?" Everyone's face was full of suspicion. They couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, because they all knew that Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were together with the madman. Inside the room, the woman sized up the madman and asked, "You are Brother Mo? Besides me, who else would be so arrogant?" The madman smiled proudly. The woman immediately smiled bitterly. It was really this person. The madman glanced around and said, "You guys are really capable." "Not bad." The woman nodded. "How many branches does the Tianhua Tower have now?" The madman was curious. The woman thought seriously and said, "There are more than a dozen big and small." After all, more than 170 years had passed. With the ability of Yin Xiang and these two women, it wasn't strange for them to have more than a dozen branches. "So many?" The madman was stunned. "Is it a lot? We are still far from our goal." The woman shook her head. "What goal?" The madman was suspicious. "Let the Tianhua Tower spread throughout the eastern continent, and even the entire sky cloud realm," the woman said proudly. The madman looked at her in astonishment. "What? Do you think I don't have such ability?" The woman looked at the madman's reaction and frowned. No. I just didn't expect that a woman like you would have such ambition." The madman shook his head. "I'm just opening a restaurant. It's not like I'm trying to build a force. This can't be called ambition." The woman was speechless. "Fine. I don't have time to chat with you. Is Yin Xiang here?" The madman frowned. "Brother Mo, this is a misunderstanding. Brother Yin is really a good person. You have to believe me." The woman hurriedly explained. "Whether he is a good person or not, I know." The madman snorted. The woman sighed helplessly and shook her head. "To be honest, Brother Mo, Brother Yin left 10 years ago." "Left?" The madman was stunned. "Yes. He didn't say where he was going," the woman said. "Why did he leave?" The madman frowned. "I'm not sure. Actually, I don't know much about Brother Yin. I only know that he is a good person. Because all these years, if not for his help, my Tianhua building wouldn't have developed so quickly. The most important thing is that he helped us so much without asking for anything in return," the woman said. The madman said in surprise, "You have been with him for so many years, but you still don't know him?" The woman nodded. "Interesting." The madman smiled in ridicule. "What's interesting?" The woman had a suspicious look. "You have been together for so long, but you still don't know him. Isn't this interesting?" The madman's face was full of playfulness. Calculating the time, Yin Xiang and this woman had been together for more than 200 years. After more than 200 years, no matter what, they should know each other. But this woman said that she didn't know him. What did this mean? It meant that Yin Xiang had concealed it well. The woman looked at him in confusion. "All right, continue." The madman waved his hand and turned to leave. "Are you leaving just like that?" the woman hurriedly said. "What else? Stay and treat me to a drink?" the madman said without turning his head back. "Sure. Heavenly Joy Pavilion has collected a lot of divine wine over the years. Last time, you and Qin Dage helped me in Wen City, but I didn't have the chance to thank you," the woman said. The madman stopped and turned to look at the woman, asking, "Is there poison in your wine?" The woman was stunned. Haha. Just kidding, just kidding. The madman laughed, opened the door and strode out. How infuriating. The woman stomped her feet angrily and walked to the door to take a look. Seeing the madman sitting beside Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, she immediately knew the identity of Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. Pavilion master, are you all right? The manager walked to the woman's side and asked with concern. I'm fine. The woman waved her hand, took out 3 jars of wine, and handed them to the manager. She pointed at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf and said, Send it to them. You're sending wine to them? And it's your precious divine wine. The manager frowned. Just do as I say. After the woman said that, she closed the door and the sound of the zither rang out. More than a dozen branches are so powerful? After Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf heard the madman's voice transmission, there was a trace of surprise on their faces. She said it herself, how can it be fake? The madman secretly said, You're quite capable. Qin Feiyang secretly smiled. This is a small matter. I'm just wondering who this Yin Xiang is. Look, whether it's him, us, or this woman from Heavenly Joy Pavilion, we all met in Wind City. But this person is interesting, helping a woman he just met. Don't say, even I think he's a good person. The madman transmitted. As long as we figure out his identity and origin, we will naturally know whether he's a good person or a hypocrite. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. How do we investigate? The madman was suspicious. Your father-in-law controls such a big city. Is it difficult to ask him to help investigate a person? Qin Feiyang said. Yes. The madman patted his head. At this time, the manager walked over and said with a flattering smile, The 3 of you, this is the divine wine from the Tower Master. Please accept it. Divine wine? The 2 men and 1 wolf were slightly stunned. The people around immediately looked at them with envy. They also felt a little strange. They directly kicked the door open without reporting. Such a rude action. They thought it would anger the Tower Master of Heavenly Joy Pavilion, but they didn't expect him to give them wine instead. What's going on? Do you want it? The madman looked at Qin Feiyang. Divine wine, of course I want it. The white-eyed wolf held a wine jar and waved his paw. The lid of the wine jar opened, and a rich wine fragrance suddenly floated out. What wine is this? It's so fragrant. The madman's eyes suddenly lit up. The faces of the surrounding guests were also filled with shock. The rich aroma of wine instantly wafted through the entire restaurant, causing everyone to salivate uncontrollably. Even the steward at the side had a look of shock on his face. This seems to be immortal wine? Suddenly, Zhuo Xiaoqing, who was sitting opposite, muttered. Immortal wine? The 2 guards were stunned. Qin Feiyang also looked at Zhuo Xiaoqing in confusion and asked, What immortal wine? Its name is immortal wine. Once, when my father entertained a guest, he took out a small jar. I heard it was very precious. Zhuo Xiaoqing said timidly. Chapter 3095. Immortal wine? Frenzy and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other, as if it was very amazing. So, 1 man and 1 wolf held a jar and drank a big mouthful. At that moment, they began to feel elated. This taste was really something they had never tasted before. Frenzy handed the wine jar to Qin Feiyang and said, You want to try it too? It's really not bad. No need. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Forget it if you don't want it. Frenzy raised his head and drank again. What a waste, what a waste. A young man dressed in gold and silver shook his head. Fatso. What's wrong? You also know about immortal wine. Someone looked at him. I once had the honor of drinking a small cup. That taste is really amazing. It can be said that this immortal wine is the best wine I have ever tasted in my life. The young man Fatso smacked his lips, looking as if he was savoring the aftertaste. Is it really that amazing? Many people expressed their puzzlement. I really don't know about immortal wine. The restaurant manager shook his head. He didn't expect that the building master would actually give the 3 of them 3 jars of immortal wine. Quickly tell us about it. Someone urged. This immortal wine, I once had the honor of tasting it for a while. It is truly a peerless divine wine. Anyone who likes to drink, as long as they try it once, Even if it is also a divine wine, they won't be interested in it in the future. The manager said. Is it that exaggerated? Everyone was in disbelief. It's not exaggerated at all. You may not have heard of immortal wine, but there is one person you all definitely know. The manager smiled. Who? Everyone was suspicious. Wine immortal. The manager said word by word. Wine immortal. Everyone's eyes trembled. This immortal wine was personally brewed by Wine Immortal. A jar of such immortal wine is priceless. The manager said. So it was brewed by Wine Immortal. No wonder immortal wine can be called a peerless divine wine. Everyone suddenly realized. Who is Wine Immortal? Frenzy suddenly asked. What? You don't even know Wine Immortal? Everyone looked at Madman in astonishment. Is he famous? Madman was suspicious. Of course. Not to mention our eastern continent, even in the entire sky cloud realm. Who doesn't know about the existence of the Wine Immortal? It is said that this Wine Immortal not only loves wine, but also likes to brew wine. Furthermore, the wine he brews is at the very least divine wine. In our sky cloud realm, there is a saying that no one knows wine better than Jiuxian, and no one knows how to brew wine better than Jiuxian. He is the number one person in the sky cloud realm. Everyone was talking at once, as if the ignorance of a lunatic had provoked public anger. I see. Madman nodded. Legend has it that this immortal wine is the Wine Immortal's proudest creation. Most people would not be able to buy it, let alone take out 3 jars as gifts. Looks like your Heavenly Joy Tower's tower master is no ordinary person. The young fatty wearing gold and silver said with a smile. You flatter me. The steward hurriedly cupped his hands and smiled. He was only a steward, so he didn't know the identity of the tower master. But the speaker had no intention, while the listener had the heart. Qin Feiyang Madman and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other, a glint flashing in their eyes at the same time. This jar is mine. Madman suddenly stretched out his hand and hugged the remaining jar of immortal wine as he looked at the white-eyed wolf. Don't give me that. The white-eyed wolf immediately prepared to snatch it. But at this moment, Qin Feiyang moved and snatched the jar from Madman's hand. What are you doing? A man and a wolf glared at him. Don't be greedy. This wine is for little gold. After Qin Feiyang said that, he sent the jar to the Black Tortoise realm. Since it was a peerless divine wine, he naturally couldn't forget the 5-clawed golden dragon. A man and a wolf pouted. Okay, let's go. Qin Feiyang stood up and opened an altar. Where are we going? Madman and the white-eyed wolf looked at him suspiciously. To see your father-in-law. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at Madman. The city lord's mansion. In front of a large hall, 2 men and a wolf appeared out of thin air. Who is it? There were 6 guards outside the hall. As soon as they saw the 2 men and the wolf, they immediately shouted. Zhuo Tiansheng, come out. The ingrate ignored them and continued to yell at them. How dare you call the Lord by his name? The 6 guards immediately rushed up and surrounded the 2 men and the wolf. That again? I'm confused. If you don't want people to call him that, then don't give him a name. The white-eyed wolf drank the immortal wine while looking at the guards, his face full of displeasure. You're courting death. The 6 people rushed up. These guards' cultivation wasn't bad. Half-step imperishable realm. But in front of the white-eyed wolf, it was definitely not enough. Because the white-eyed wolf had already reached initial success imperishable realm. After a few punches and kicks, the 6 people were lying on the ground and howling. What's going on? Suddenly, 2 figures flew over from afar, their faces dark. It was Zhuo Tianqing and Elder Yu. Lord, they trespassed the city lord's mansion and injured us. The 6 guards hurriedly got up and ran to Zhuo Tianqing, shouting angrily. Who are you? Zhuo Tianqing glanced at the 2 men and the wolf. Guess. The white-eyed wolf grinned. Not interested. Zhuo Tianqing's eyes flashed coldly. Lord, don't be rash. Look at the wine they're drinking. It seems to be immortal wine. Elder Yu said telepathically. Zhuo Tianqing was startled and hurriedly looked at the wine in the hands of the madman and the white-eyed wolf. Smelling the wine, it really was immortal wine. Qin Feiyang pointed at the hall and smiled. Let's go in and talk. Okay. Zhuo Tianxing looked deeply at Qin Feiyang and walked into the hall with Elder Yu. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf also followed in. The 6 guards also prepared to follow in. But the madman closed the door, making the 6 of them hit the door. Who the hell are you? Zhuo Tianxing turned around and looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf with an unfriendly gaze. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other and smiled. They took out a facial restoration pill and threw it into their mouths. Soon, they recovered their true appearance. It's you? Zhuo Tianxing and Elder Yu looked at them in shock. The white-eyed wolf joked. Otherwise, who would have the guts to break into your city lord's mansion? Zhuo Tianxing and the madman couldn't help but smile bitterly. Yes. Other than these guys, who would dare to be so presumptuous? But why did you come to the city lord's mansion? What if someone finds out? Elder Yu frowned. Didn't the vice leader want to reconcile? It doesn't matter if someone finds out, the madman said. You can't say that. Although the vice leader has the intention to reconcile, our relationship can't be known to others. Elder Yu shook his head. Okay, let's not talk about this. You definitely don't come to the 3 Treasures Palace for no reason. Say it. Zhuo Tianxing smiled faintly. There is indeed a little matter. Help us investigate Yun Xiang. Qin Feiyang said. Yun Xiang? Zhuo Tianxing was stunned. Yes, you also saw with your own eyes that he had a wisp of murderous intent protecting him. This murderous intent is very strong, so I guess his identity shouldn't be simple. Qin Feiyang said. It seems that you guys are really not familiar with him. But I have already investigated this person. Zhuo Tianxing said. How is it? Qin Feiyang asked. Like you guys very mysterious. Zhuo Tianxing shook his head. When the 2 men and 1 wolf heard this, a flash of light flashed in their eyes. Zhuo Tianxing suddenly glanced at the wine jars in the hands of the madman and the white-eyed wolf and asked, Where did you guys get this immortal wine? The Tianyue Tower's lord gave it to us. The white-eyed wolf said. What? She actually has immortal wine and gave away 3 jars at once. You have to know that even I can't get so many jars of immortal wine. In the past, I was only able to drink some because of the city lord. Zhuo Tianxing was shocked. According to what you said, this Tianyue Tower's lord doesn't seem to be simple? Qin Feiyang was surprised. You can't say that. After all, she's in this line of work, and her network is different from ours. Zhuo Tianxing shook his head. All right then, I'll trouble you a bit more. Help us investigate this Yun Xiang, and at the same time, investigate the owner of Tianyue Tower as well. Qin Feiyang said. That's not a problem. Zhuo Tianxing nodded and asked, How is Xiaoxian? Pretty good. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. Zhuo Tianxing breathed a sigh of relief, then looked at the madman and said, Take good care of her. If you dare to bully her, I won't let you off. Yes, yes, yes. The madman nodded repeatedly. From the moment he saw Zhuo Tianxing, he felt a little uncomfortable. Although he was not afraid of anything, he was still quite honest in front of his father-in-law. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, There's one more thing. Give us the coordinates of the Kanglan Snow Mountain. What? You want to go to the Kanglan Snow Mountain? Zhuo Tianxing and Elder Yu looked at them in surprise. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, We're just going to take a look, nothing else. Do we look like idiots to you? Zhuo Tianxing rolled his eyes. With these people's personalities, how could they not have any thoughts if they took the initiative to go to the Kanglan Snow Mountain? After pondering for a while, Zhuo Tianxing shook his head and sighed. Even if I don't give you the coordinates, you'll find someone else. I might as well tell you directly, but don't act recklessly. After all, that's the base of our Rogue Cultivator Alliance. The experts hidden there are beyond your imagination. How strong? The madman was curious. Let's not talk about the Alliance capital first. Let's talk about the glacier outside the Alliance capital. Without permission, even with my cultivation, I won't be able to pass through the glacier alive. Zhuo Tianxing said in a deep voice. So terrifying? The 2 men and 1 wolf were shocked. Zhuo Tianxing was a high-level dominator. Zhuo Tianxing said. In short, with your cultivation, going to the alliance capital is courting death. Sir, have you forgotten that they have a dominator divine weapon? Elder Yu reminded in a low voice. Zhuo Tianxing was stunned. He had really forgotten about this. If they had a dominator divine weapon, then it was fine. It was very straightforward. He directly gave the coordinates to Qin Feiyang one by one. The Kanglan Snow Mountain was in the far west of the eastern continent, and Wen Sea City was in the east. To go to the Kanglan Snow Mountain, they had to cross the eastern continent, so they needed a lot of coordinates. Qin Feiyang memorized them one by one. Next, they chatted for a while, and the 2 men and 1 wolf were about to activate the teleportation altar to leave. But at this time, there was a sudden violent knock on the door. Sir, not good. The young master has been kidnapped. An anxious voice sounded from outside the door. What? Zhuo Tianxing and Elder Yu's expressions changed. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other and couldn't help but frown, because the owner of this voice was one of the 2 guards following Zhuo Xiaocheng. Chapter 3096. Zhuo Tianxing came back to his senses and immediately walked toward the door. Qin Feiyang, Luo Tianxing, and the white-eyed wolf also quickly returned to their original appearances. When the door opened, they saw the guard standing at the door covered in blood. What happened? Zhuo Tianxing said in a low voice. The guard was about to speak when he saw Qin Feiyang, Luo Tianxing, and the white-eyed wolf. He asked in surprise, "Why are you here?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and asked, "Who kidnapped Zhuo Xiaocheng?" "I don't know. Not long after you left Tianyue Tower, a middle-aged man came and attacked us. His cultivation was very strong, at least half-step dominator. Zhang Yuan was killed on the spot, and I fainted on the spot. It was the Tower Lord of Tianyue Tower who gave me a healing pill to quickly wake me up. When I woke up, they told me that the young master had been taken away by him," the guard said in a trembling voice. He was definitely worried that Zhuo Tianxing would punish him, because Zhuo Tianxing only had 1 son. Although he was a little cowardly, he treated him like a treasure. "Then where did they go?" Luo Tianxing asked. "I don't know." The guard shook his head and then knelt on the ground. He looked at Zhuo Tianxing and begged, "I'm sorry I didn't protect the young master. Please have mercy." Mercy? Zhuo Tianxing was full of hostility and immediately slapped at the guard. But suddenly, Qin Feiyang reached out and grabbed Zhuo Tianxing's wrist. He shook his head and said, "The other party is at least half-step dominator. He can't do anything." But Zhuo Tianxing frowned. "I know you're worried about Zhuo Xiaocheng, but killing him won't do anything to save him. Moreover, he came back to report to you after such a big thing happened. It means that he's loyal to you. It's your loss to kill him now," Qin Feiyang said. Zhuo Tianxing pondered for a while, and then put down his arm. He looked at the guard and said, "Go back and recover." "Thank you, Lord." "Thank you, brother." The guard looked gratefully at Zhuo Tianxing and Qin Feiyang, then turned and left. Zhuo Tianxing looked at the 6 guards outside and shouted, "You guys!" "Yes." The 6 stepped forward. "Send down the order immediately. Everyone in the city lord's mansion is to go out and search for him. Also call the tower master of Tianyue Tower here. If she doesn't obey, kill her," shouted Zhuo Tianxing. "Yes." The 6 of them responded respectfully and immediately turned around and ran away. Little Cheng's character is naturally cowardly. He doesn't even know how to scold people, let alone make enemies. How could this happen? Elder frowned. "Do you still need to think about it? This matter is obviously directed at me." Zhuo Tianxing coldly snorted. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. "Why are you looking at us? You're not suspecting us, are you?" Madman raised an eyebrow. Zhuo Tianxing was slightly stunned and smiled bitterly. "If it was before, I would have doubted you. But now you and Xiaoxian have such a relationship. How can I doubt you?" "That's more like it," Madman said. "I think you want to ask, have you met with Xiaocheng?" Zhuo Tianxing said. "Yes. We went to Tianyue building and happened to meet him. We even chatted with him." Madman nodded. Zhuo Tianxing asked, "What do you think of Xiaocheng?" Madman said. Didn't Elder you just say that he's cowardly? Yes. I really don't know why those sons of mine were all so arrogant and despotic in the past. Why is this one like this? Not to mention outsiders. Even I sometimes can't help but wonder if he's my biological son. Zhuo Tianxing shook his head with a sad face. The white-eyed wolf asked, have you verified that he's your biological son? Ahem. Zhuo Tianxing coughed dryly and said speechlessly, you really asked that? After saying that, he looked outside and said in a low voice, I secretly verified that he's my biological son. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, that's probably because of his mother. Is his mother's personality the same? His mother? His mother is more quiet, but she's not afraid of trouble. In any case, he doesn't look like anyone. After Zhuo Tianxing said that, he added, by the way, his mother is Xiaoxian's mother. They're real siblings. I see. According to Xiaoxian's personality, he shouldn't be so timid. Maybe it's his nature. It's hard to say. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. I think so too. In order to change him, I asked my subordinates to bring him to a crowded place like Tianyue Building. I didn't expect that something like this would happen. You're right. It's not the guard's fault. I'm the one who harmed him. Zhuo Tianxing sighed. Don't worry. As far as I know, Zhuo Xiaoqing's life is not in danger for the time being. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Why do you think so? Zhuo Tianxing was suspicious. Think about it. If he really wanted to kill Zhuo Xiaoqing, why didn't he kill him in Tianyue Building? Why did he go through so much trouble to kidnap him? Qin Feiyang said. You mean he wants to use Xiaoqing as a bargaining chip to blackmail me? Zhuo Tianxing frowned. That should be the case. So before he achieves his goal, Zhuo Xiaoqing should be safe. Even if we look for him now, we probably won't be able to find him. Let's wait for him to contact us. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Zhuo Tianxing asked, then should I call the guards of the City Lord Mansion back? That's not necessary. Let them continue to look for him. This way, they can see how much you care about your son. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. That makes sense. If we don't look for him, he may think that you don't care about Xiaoqing's life and death. Maybe he will kill him directly. Anyway, he has no value. Old you nodded. Sigh. Look at my head, I'm about to faint. Zhuo Tianxing rubbed his forehead. Usually he wouldn't ignore such details. Frenzy asked. Do you want Xiaoxian to come out and comfort you? No. Xiaoxian is kind-hearted. If she knows that her brother has been kidnapped, she will be more anxious than me. Besides, I haven't told her that she has a brother now. Zhuo Tianxing hurriedly waved his hand. Sir, the person has been brought. At this moment, a guard led the owner of Tianyue Building into the main hall from the outside. Seeing that Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf were also there, the owner of Tianyue Building was taken aback. She immediately bowed and said, Greetings, Deputy City Lord. My son was kidnapped in your Tianyue Building. Shouldn't you give me an explanation? Zhuo Tianxing said in a deep voice. Tianyue Building is indeed responsible for this matter. At that time, I also sent people to secretly follow them. But when my people followed them outside the city, they lost them because that person's speed was too fast. Now they are also assisting the City Lord Mansion's guards in the search. The owner of Tianyue Building said. Zhuo Tianxing said in a deep voice, Cheng'er better be fine. Otherwise, I'll hold you responsible. Good people will be rewarded. Besides, aren't they here now? The owner of Tianyue Building looked at Qin Feiyang and White-Eyed Wolf and smiled. Zhuo Tianxing frowned. Could it be that she knew the identity of Qin Feiyang and the others? Qin Feiyang smiled and asked, What does that person look like? The owner of Tianyue Building waved her hand, and the phantom of a middle-aged man appeared. Qin Feiyang looked up and didn't recognize him at all. Zhuo Tianxing and Old Yu looked up and had no impression of the middle-aged man either. Kidnapping the son of the deputy city lord is no small matter. I think this person must have changed his appearance in advance. The owner of Tianyue Building speculated. No matter who he is, don't let me find him. Zhuo Tianxing's eyes flashed with a strong murderous intent. At the same time, deep in the mountains, swish, A middle-aged man and a young man descended on the top of a mountain. The young man was Zhuo Xiaoqing. The middle-aged man looked around vigilantly and landed on the top of the mountain. He looked at a cave next to him and said, "Come out." As his voice fell, a young man walked out of the cave. "I've brought him to you." The middle-aged man threw Zhuo Xiaoqing at the young man's feet. The young man looked down at Zhuo Xiaoqing, his eyes flashing with undisguised murderous intent. He looked up at the middle-aged man and asked, "No one followed us, right?" "Don't worry. I'll be very careful." The middle-aged man smiled reassuringly and then asked, "Then what do you plan to do with him now?" The young man looked down at Zhuo Xiaoqing again and said nothing. Zhuo Xiaoqing was very flustered at this moment. His face was pale, and he curled up like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. "I didn't expect the son of Zhuo Tianxing to be so timid." The young man shook his head, his face full of ridicule. "Who are you? Why did you kidnap me?" Zhuo Xiaoqing plucked up his courage and looked at the two of them. "Why?" The young man's face immediately became ferocious and roared. "Because your father is a scum. I won't allow you to say that about my father." Zhuo Xiaoqing roared. "Ha. You don't think your father is a good man, do you?" The young man laughed. Zhuo Xiaoqing lowered his head. Although Zhuo Tianxing had always been a good father in front of him, he also knew about the gossip about Zhuo Tianxing outside. In the outside world, his father was a cruel and merciless person. "What? Nothing to say?" The young man sneered. Zhuo Xiaoqing said, "You can say my father is ruthless, but you can't insult him." "I will scold him. He's not only a scum, but also a beast." "No. He's worse than a beast. Because a beast more or less has a conscience." The young man's face was extremely ferocious and his eyes were full of resentment. "You're worse than a beast," Zhuo Xiaoqing roared. "You're courting death." The young man slapped Zhuo Xiaoqing and sent him flying on the spot, smashing into a rock, and blood immediately gushed out. "I didn't expect that one day I can slap Zhuo Tianxing's son. This feels so good." The young man laughed and stepped forward, punching and kicking Zhuo Xiaoqing. His face was full of joy. Chapter 3097. That's enough. Don't really kill him. The middle-aged man glanced at Zhuo Xiaoqing and stepped forward to stop the young man. "Even if you kill Zhuo Tianxing, he won't know. We can still threaten him." The young man snorted. "Do you think he's so stupid that he will give us what we want before seeing his son with his own eyes?" The middle-aged man glared at him. "All right." The young man nodded and kicked Zhuo Xiaoqing in the stomach, sneering. "You should be glad that you're Zhuo Tianxing's son, or you'd be a corpse now." Zhuo Xiaoqing lay on the ground, wailing. The middle-aged man glanced at Zhuo Xiaoqing and shook his head. Then he looked at the young man and said, "Let's find a place to hide first. We'll contact Zhuo Tianxing in 2 days." "Okay." The young man nodded and took off Zhuo Xiaoqing's interspatial ring. He found Zhuo Xiaoqing's voice transmission stone and crushed it. This was to prevent Zhuo Xiaoqing from sending a message to Zhuo Tianxing when they were not paying attention. The city lord's mansion. Without any news, Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf stayed in the city lord's mansion for the time being. The Tianyue Tower lord wanted to leave, but Zhuo Tianxing did not allow it. He said that she could only leave after saving Zhuo Xiaoqing. Otherwise, she would be buried with Zhuo Xiaoqing. Therefore, she could only stay in the city lord's mansion for the time being. In a backyard. It was remote and quiet. This was where they lived. A few days later in the morning, Qin Feiyang got up early. After washing up, he walked out of the yard and breathed in the fresh air. Suddenly, he noticed that in the yard next door, the Tianyue Tower lord was sitting at the stone table, looking into the distance with a worried face. "What are you thinking about?" Qin Feiyang walked over curiously. The Tianyue Tower lord came to her senses and quickly turned to look at Qin Feiyang. She smiled. Nothing. You obviously have something on your mind. Are you worried about Zhuo Xiaoqing?" Qin Feiyang smiled. "Zhuo Xiaoqing had an accident in the Tianyue Tower. I do have an unshirkable responsibility." The Tianyue Tower lord sighed. Qin Feiyang said, "Then have you found a very serious problem in this matter?" "What is it?" The Tianyue Tower's tower master was suspicious. In this world, no matter if it's a major force or a famous family, if they want to establish themselves in a place, they must have a powerful expert. As for your Tianhua Tower, although it has developed very quickly these years, its foundation is not stable at all. Because your Tianhua Tower doesn't have a single expert who can intimidate the world. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. His words woke her up from her dream. The tower master of Tianhua Tower stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang. That's right. If Tianhua Tower had an expert keeping watch, then no one would dare to mess around in Tianhua Tower. Then what happened to Zhuo Xiaoqing would not have happened. The house master of Tianhua Tower pondered for a while before she mustered her courage and said, Qin Dage, are you willing to be the backer of Tianhua Tower? Me. Qin Feiyang was taken aback. I know this request is too abrupt, and I can't give you anything in return. But I have no choice. I don't know any experts. The only ones I can think of are you, Big Brother Mo, and Big Brother Yin. The house master of Tianhua Tower lowered her head, and seemed a little afraid, not daring to look straight into Qin Feiyang's eyes. Then you can look for Yin Xiang. He's more enthusiastic than I am. Qin Feiyang smiled. Big Brother Yin is indeed a warm-hearted person, but he's still a little lacking when it comes to intimidating the world. But you're different from Big Brother Mo. You have sovereign divine weapons. You can definitely protect our Tianhua Tower. The house master of Tianhua Tower said. I'm afraid we don't have the energy. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. You don't have to worry about that. Miao Miao and I will take care of everything in Tianhua Tower. You just have to stand behind us and support us. The house master of Tianhua Tower hurriedly said. Miao Miao? Qin Feiyang was stunned. It's Yi Miao from Purple Smoke Tower. I was the one who invited her to join Tianhua Tower. The house master of Tianhua Tower said. I see. Qin Feiyang smiled and shook his head. It's not that I don't want to help you. It's because we can't help you. Why? The house master of Tianhua Tower was suspicious. We have our own difficulties. Let's put it this way. If we really stand with Tianhua Tower, then I can tell you that what will bring you will definitely not be help, but disaster. Qin Feiyang said. Is it because of the Blood Hall? The house master of Tianhua Tower asked. How do you know about the Blood Hall? Qin Feiyang was stunned. At that time, only the two sovereign divine weapons, the Dragon God Sword and no one from the Blood Hall appeared. Logically speaking, this woman shouldn't have thought of the Blood Hall. When the two sovereign divine weapons came to Wine Sea City to kill you, the big shots of the Blood Hall also arrived at the demonic palace. So now everyone is guessing that the Blood Hall should be behind this. The house master of Tianhua Tower said. I see. In that case, I won't hide it from you. It's indeed because of the Blood Hall. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then can I ask, what kind of deep hatred do you have with the Blood Hall that made them go to such lengths? The house master of Tianhua Tower was suspicious. To be honest, I don't know what the Blood Hall is trying to do. In fact, I didn't even know the Blood Hall before, let alone hate them. However, I am familiar with the two sovereign divine weapons that appeared in Wine Sea City, and we are old rivals. Qin Feiyang said. Old rivals. The house master of Tianhua Tower was in disbelief. Old rivals with sovereign divine weapons? Who exactly are these people? So, we really can't help you. Just like back in Wine City, we didn't want to be with you and Yin Xiang. On one hand, we couldn't trust you. On the other hand, we didn't want to implicate you. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. I understand. The house master of Tianhua Tower nodded. Even so, he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Don't think too much about it now because no matter what, it starts from step by step. It's definitely not that easy at the beginning. Qin Feiyang comforted. Thank you, Qin Dage. The house master of Tianhua Tower smiled and asked, Then can I ask why you are in the City Lord Mansion? Doesn't the Vice Alliance leader want to reconcile with us? So we came to talk to Zhuo Tiansheng and the others. But we didn't expect to encounter this. Qin Feiyang shook his head. What about Zhuo Xiaoxian? The house master of Tianhua Tower asked. She's in my spatial divine item. We came to the City Lord Mansion to reconcile because of her. To tell you the truth, actually, I don't want to reconcile at all, but there's no other way. Zhuo Xiaoxian and senior brother Feng Zi love each other. If we don't reconcile with the Vice Alliance leader, they can't be together openly. Qin Feiyang sighed. As for the real relationship between Zhuo Tianxing and them, he didn't mention it at all, because he still couldn't trust this woman. If the truth of this matter reached the Vice Alliance leader's ears, Zhuo Tianxing and the City Lord would be the ones to suffer. That's true. The housemaster of Tianyue Tower nodded. By the way, how should I address you? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Yueqing. Qin Dage, just call me Xiao Qin. The housemaster of Tianyue Tower smiled. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded with a smile. At this moment, Elder Yu suddenly descended from the sky and landed in front of Qin Feiyang. He said telepathically, Brother Qin, the two lords have invited you over. Any news? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. Elder Yu nodded. What about her? Qin Feiyang glanced at Yueqing. She doesn't need to go. With her present, it's inconvenient for us to talk. Elder Yu said to himself. Okay. Qin Feiyang responded, looked at the courtyard and shouted. White-eyed wolf, senior brother, let's go. In the conference hall, when Qin Feiyang and the others entered the hall, Zhuo Tianxing immediately closed the door and set up a soundproof barrier. Greetings, City Lord. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled. We're all family, no need to be so polite. The City Lord waved his hand. Take a look at this. Zhuo Tianxing walked in front of the two people and the wolf and took out a letter from his chest. Qin Feiyang took the letter and opened it. There were a few lines of small words. The content was roughly, within 3 days, prepare 5 peak-level heaven-defying divine artifacts, 2,000 rank 5 divine rank soul lines and crystal veins, and go to Black Crow Mountain to exchange for Zhuo Xiaocheng. 5 peak-level heaven-defying divine artifacts, 2,000 divine rank soul lines and crystal veins? He really dares to ask for it. Madman raised his eyebrows. This is a problem. 1 or 2 peak-level heaven-defying divine artifacts, we can still think of a way, but 5 at once, where are we going to find them? The City Lord rubbed his forehead, feeling a little troubled. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered and he asked, Who sent this letter? And where is this Black Crow Mountain? According to the city guards, this letter was sent by a child. We have investigated this child. He is just a child from an ordinary family in Wuxia City. And according to the child, it was a middle-aged man who gave him some soul stones and asked him to pass it to the city guards. As for Black Crow Mountain, it is not in Wuxia City, but in the north of Cloud Sea City. It is about half a day's journey from our Wuxia City. Of course, this journey refers to the opening of the teleportation altar, Zhuo Tianxing said. So far, Qin Feiyang was stunned. Even the opening of the teleportation altar took half a day. He then asked, Then could they be from Cloud Sea City? We also thought so, but before we figure it out, we can't be sure. Zhuo Tianxing shook his head. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said, Then let's do as they say and give them these things. How? He only gave us 3 days. Besides, he dares to blackmail us. Not to mention 5 peak-level heaven-defying divine artifacts. Even if it is a low-level heaven-defying divine artifact, I will not give it to him. Zhuo Tianxing snorted coldly. But now we have no other choice, right? Unless you don't care about Zhuo Xiaocheng's life. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Then do you have any way to get so many peak-level heaven-defying divine artifacts in a short time? The City Lord asked. That's simple. With a thought in Qin Feiyang's mind, the golden scale sword, sunset divine bow, sky-breaking halberd, earth shield and axe appeared. The City Lord and the others were dumbfounded. It was really 5 peak-level heaven-defying divine artifacts. How many treasures were these little fellows hiding? Qin Feiyang smiled and said, You should have spirit veins and crystal veins, right? If you don't, I can give them to you. We have them all. The 3 of them came back to their senses and hurriedly nodded. Even they couldn't take out 5 peak-level heaven-defying divine artifacts, but this kid didn't even bat an eyelid. It was unimaginable. All right then, get ready. We will set off for Black Crow Mountain now. Qin Feiyang smiled. But Zhuo Tiansheng looked at the sunset divine bow and the other divine artifacts with reluctance in his eyes. Don't worry. They are all my companions. Not to mention this person. Even if the Demon Hall and your Rogue Cultivator Alliance tempted them, they would not leave me. Qin Feiyang smiled confidently. Chapter 3098. So confident. The three of them were stunned. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and did not explain. The city lord looked at Zhuo Tianxing and said, "In that case, quickly go and prepare the crystal vein and soul vein." Okay. Zhuo Tianxing nodded and immediately turned to leave. In less than 100 breaths, he returned to the main hall. Let's go. The city lord got up. You're going too? Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously. Openly abducting my city lord mansion's people is a blatant provocation to the dignity of my city lord mansion. As the city lord, of course I have to go and see who this arrogant person is. The city lord snorted and opened a teleportation altar. The teleportation altar is too slow. Do you have the coordinates of Black Crow Mountain? Let's teleport there directly. Qin Feiyang took out the space-time gate. What is this? The three of them looked at the space-time gate in confusion. A divine artifact for space-time teleportation. Qin Feiyang smiled. You even have such a divine artifact? The city lord was stunned. This kid really made people afraid to get along with him. Because the longer they got along, the scarier he felt. After Zhuo Tiansheng gave him the coordinates, Qin Feiyang opened the space-time gate in the main hall. Immediately, a group of people entered in a line. Black Crow Mountain. The mountain was like its name, like a giant crow, standing among the vast mountains. At the highest peak, a middle-aged man was sitting cross-legged. This person was in his 40s, dressed in black, and had a strong body. Clang. Suddenly, there was a loud noise in the sky ahead. The middle-aged man in black immediately opened his eyes and looked up in surprise. He saw a stone door emerging from the void and slowly opening. This is a divine artifact for space-time teleportation. The middle-aged man in black was shocked and stared at the space-time gate. Who could it be? Soon, the space-time gate opened, and 5 people and a dog walked out. So fast. The middle-aged man in black looked at Qin Feiyang and the others in shock. He thought that he would have to wait for a few days, but he did not expect it to come so quickly. Qin Feiyang kept the space-time gate, and then the group looked around. Very soon, they saw the black-robed middle-aged man on the mountain peak ahead. Zhuo Tiansheng took a step forward and landed on the mountain peak. He gloomily said, "It's you." The middle-aged man in black hurriedly took a few steps back and nodded. "Yes, it's me." The mayor, Elder Yu Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf also landed beside Zhuo Tiansheng. The city lord sized up the black-clothed middle-aged man and sneered. A mere half-step sovereign actually dares to provoke our city lord mansion. There was a trace of fear in the eyes of the middle-aged man in black. He did not expect the city lord to come personally. But when he thought that Zhuo Xiaoqing was in their hands, he regained some confidence. He looked at Qin Feiyang's group and asked, "Have you brought the things we want?" Zhuo Tianxing waved his hand, and 2,000 spirit veins and crystal veins appeared. Qin Feiyang also waved his hand. The sunset divine bow, the shield of thick earth, the 7 stars staff, the sky-breaking halberd, and the white jade sword appeared. He was going to take out the golden scale sword, but Qin Feiyang suddenly remembered that the golden scale sword had appeared before. Once he took out the golden scale sword, the other party would immediately see through his identity. Zhuo Tianxing said in a low voice, "Everything you want is here. Where's my son? Give it to me first. After I leave, I'll immediately release your son." The black-clothed middle-aged man said. "My son isn't here? Are you fucking playing with me?" Zhuo Tianxing was instantly filled with hostility, and a terrifying divine might surged toward the black-clothed middle-aged man. "I'm not playing with you. I'm doing this for our safety. Because you're too strong. If I brought your son here, and you wanted to rob him, we wouldn't have the ability to stop you. So, we can only put your son somewhere else. Once we get what we want, I promise to release him immediately." The black-clothed middle-aged man had a panicked expression. What a joke. Zhuo Tiansheng and Elder Yu were both late-stage sovereigns. The city lord was even a perfected sovereign. How could he not be nervous? Elder Yu frowned and said, "So even if we give it to you now, we won't be able to see Zhuo Xiaocheng?" The black-clothed middle-aged man shook his head and said, "Before you give it to me, I won't let you see him." "Then how can we trust you? Will you really release Zhuo Xiaocheng? What if we give it to you and ask you to leave, but you don't let him go?" Elder Yu asked. "I'm a man of my word," the black-clothed middle-aged man said. "Don't say such nonsense. You can't trust us, and we can't trust you either." Elder Yu shook his head. For a moment, the two sides were in a deadlock. "Old Qin, since Zhuo Xiaocheng isn't here, I have an idea." Madman suddenly transmitted his voice. "What idea?" Qin Feiyang was startled and secretly asked. "Control him and read his memories," Madman secretly said. Qin Feiyang's heart stirred, and he discreetly raised his head to look at the void. If this person's accomplice really wasn't here, then Madman's suggestion was feasible. But he was afraid that this person's accomplice was hiding nearby. When he saw them make a move, he would definitely be driven to desperation and kill Zhuo Xiaocheng. Moreover, he was also somewhat hesitant. After all, this person was a half-step dominator. If he fought with his life on the line and suddenly resisted when he used the puppet technique to control him, then he would be in danger. Just like last time, when he used the slave seal to control Zhuo Tiansheng suddenly resisted and caused him a backlash. Now that he thought about it, he was still afraid. "How about this? I'll let you see him first." The black-clothed middle-aged man finally spoke, breaking the silence. "How?" Zhuo Tiansheng frowned. The black-clothed middle-aged man said, "Through the sound transmission God Stone." This, Zhuo Tiansheng was somewhat hesitant. At this time, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and suddenly thought of a better idea. He shook his head and said, "No." And not only the black-clothed middle-aged man, Zhuo Tiansheng and Madman also looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. The sound transmission Godstone can also be faked, because we don't know if the Zhuo Xiaocheng we saw was impersonated by someone else. Qin Feiyang said, "Is it necessary for us to find someone to impersonate him?" The black-clothed middle-aged man said angrily. "We can't rule out this possibility, right? Because we don't know if Zhuo Xiaocheng is still alive." Qin Feiyang said lightly. The black-clothed middle-aged man shouted, "Then you can confirm it through the sound transmission Godstone." But just as he finished speaking, he remembered that Zhuo Xiaocheng's sound transmission Godstone had been crushed. Since the sound transmission Godstone was crushed, it seemed that there was no way to confirm it. "I have a proposal that will benefit both of us," Qin Feiyang said. "What proposal?" The black-clothed middle-aged man was suspicious. "Take me to see Zhuo Xiaocheng. I'm only at the small success imperishable realm. It's easy for you to kill me, so you don't have to worry at all. After I see Zhuo Xiaocheng, what will I do to you?" Qin Feiyang said lightly. Zhuo Tiansheng, Elder Yu, and the city lord looked at each other. This proposal was good. And this was obviously a trap set by Qin Feiyang. Yes, his cultivation was indeed only at the small success imperishable realm. But his true strength was far more than that. If this person really took Qin Feiyang to see Zhuo Xiaocheng, it was tantamount to bringing a wolf. At that time, it would be easy to save Zhuo Xiaocheng. This, however, the black-clothed middle-aged man was not stupid and was very hesitant. Although Qin Feiyang was only at the small success imperishable realm, it did not rule out other means. For example, there was a hidden space divine object, and there were some people who were stronger than him hidden in the space divine object. After all, the previous 5 peak-level heaven-defying artifacts were taken out by this person. This is the only way now, otherwise we can't trust each other, and the deal can't be completed at all. Qin Feiyang said. The black-clothed middle-aged man was silent, and his eyes suddenly glanced at the madman and the white-eyed wolf. The white-eyed wolf transformed into a big gray dog. The madman was the same as Qin Feiyang, a middle-aged man. They both looked very ordinary. Finally, the black-clothed middle-aged man pointed at the white-eyed wolf and said in a deep voice, Let it confirm. It. Qin Feiyang frowned. Yes. It's it, you go. I'm not at ease. The black-clothed youth nodded. The white-eyed wolf looked dazed and said, Does he think I'm easy to bully? That's what I mean. Qin Feiyang and the madman laughed secretly. Damn, you're looking for death. The white-eyed wolf suddenly burned with anger. Can you really do it? Maybe his accomplice is stronger than him. The madman said. You're doubting my ability. The white-eyed wolf fiercely stared at the madman, looked at the black-clothed middle-aged man and nodded. Okay, I'll go take a look. Good. The black-clothed middle-aged man opened an altar and looked at Qin Feiyang and the others. Then wait for me here. Qin Feiyang nodded. Let's go. The black-clothed middle-aged man looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, After you go, don't hurt me. The white-eyed wolf looked at him with a timid look. I don't need to compete with a beast. The black-clothed middle-aged man snorted and stepped onto the altar. Beast, the white-eyed wolf muttered, a cold light flashing in the depths of his eyes, and then stepped onto the altar. Just these words alone had announced the death of the black-clothed middle-aged man. After watching the man and wolf leave, Zhuo Tianxing immediately looked at Qin Feiyang and was about to speak. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and said, First use your divine sense to see if there are any spatial divine items hidden nearby. Zhuo Tianxing was taken aback. He quickly nodded and released his divine sense in all directions. A moment later, Zhuo Tianxing shook his head and said, Except for some fierce beasts, I didn't find any suspicious people. That's good. Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a smile. Then ask. Zhuo Tianxing frowned and said, I just want to ask, can it really do it? Because he hadn't seen the white-eyed wolf in action, he didn't know the white-eyed wolf's strength. This, Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other and shook their heads with a wry smile. To be honest, we don't know either. You don't know? Isn't it your companion? Zhuo Tianxing and the others were stunned. This answer was simply too unexpected. Yes, we are companions. But this guy likes to act mysterious in front of us, so we don't know how strong it is now. Qin Feiyang looked helpless. Zhuo Tianxing and the others looked at each other. If they didn't even know each other's strength, could they still be considered companions? You don't have to doubt my relationship with the white-eyed wolf. Because we already knew each other when I was 15 years old. Until today, we have never been separated after countless trials and hardships. It can be said that we are like blood brothers. As for its ability, you don't have to doubt it either. Since it dares to go alone, it must be very confident. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Madman also looked at the three and said, You don't know this wolf cub. If it's serious, even old Qin and I will be beaten up. It's that powerful? The three were shocked. Who knows? Madman shrugged. He also wanted to know the white-eyed wolf's current strength, but there was no chance. Chapter 3099. Buzz. Suddenly, the voice transmission stone rang. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback as he took out the divine sound transmission stone. The white-eyed wolf? Madman asked. It can't be. It's only been a while. Qin Feiyang shook his head, but when he checked the voice transmission stone, his expression suddenly froze. What's wrong? Madman looked at him suspiciously. It's really him. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. So fast. It's not that far from here, Zhuo Tianxing whispered. Qin Feiyang activated the voice transmission stone. The white-eyed wolf shadow immediately appeared, glancing at them and said, Come here. After saying that, it gave Qin Feiyang and the others a few coordinates and then disappeared. Go there? The five of them were stunned. What's going on? After the white-eyed wolf confirmed it, shouldn't the middle-aged man in black come to trade with them? Why did the white-eyed wolf ask them to go there instead? Wait. Could it be that this wolf cub has already killed them? Madman suddenly said. Killed them? Qin Feiyang and Zhuo Tianxing were stunned and then shook their heads. It's absolutely impossible. It's only been a while. Even if it has the ability, it can't be so fast. Then is there any other explanation? Madman said. Let's go and take a look. Qin Feiyang put away the divine artifact. Zhuo Tiansheng also put away the spirit vein and crystal vein, opened the altar, and the few of them quickly rushed up. About 10 breaths later, they landed in the air above a mountain range. When they looked down at the mountain range below, the 5 of them froze. Below them, the mountains within millions of miles were razed to the ground. In the void, there were still very strong battle fluctuations left. At this moment, the white-eyed wolf was standing on a broken boulder, looking at the 2 people below with eyes full of contempt. Next to the white-eyed wolf, there was a young man lying in a coma. It was Zhuo Xiaocheng. The 5 of them looked at each other and landed next to the white-eyed wolf. "How's the small success?" Zhuo Tianxing asked. The white-eyed wolf waved his paws and said calmly, "He's fine. He just fainted." Zhuo Tianxing heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the 2 people below. One of them was the middle-aged man in black, and the other was a young man. "What's going on?" Madman looked at the 2 in shock. Both of their bodies were riddled with wounds, especially their lower abdomens, where there was a fist-sized bloody hole that penetrated from the front to the back, and blood was gushing out. Seriously injured just like that? Zhuo Tianxing and the other 2 found it hard to believe. It was just as the madman had predicted. He had already dealt with the 2 of them. But this wolf cub was clearly only at the small success imperishable level. How did it do it? Look at their eyes. Elder Yu transmitted his voice. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at the 2 of them and discovered that the 2 of them were staring at the ingrates. No matter if it was their pale faces or their weak eyes, they were all filled with fear. They didn't even seem to notice the arrival of Qin Feiyang and the others. Their eyes were as if they had seen a devil. What on earth happened to make them so fearful? Qin Feiyang and the others were shocked. One had to know. The middle-aged man in black was quite strong, half-step dominator. And the white-eyed wolf was only at the small success imperishable level. Yet he was able to scare him like this. What did the white-eyed wolf do to them? Cough cough. Madman coughed dryly and said with a flattering smile, "Brother Wolf, you're amazing." "Of course. 2 little caterpillars dare to look down on me? Aren't you courting death?" The white-eyed wolf had a look of disdain. "Little caterpillars?" Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other, the corners of their mouths twitching. A half-step dominator was just a little caterpillar in this guy's eyes? Even they didn't dare to be so arrogant. "Brother Wolf, then tell us, how did you deal with them?" Madman asked as if he was trying to curry favor. "I won't tell you." The white-eyed wolf glanced at Madman indifferently. "This old man has a bad temper. Come, let's fight." Madman immediately rolled up his sleeves, looking like he was ready to fight. "Not interested." The white-eyed wolf pouted. Madman's face was dark, his eyes suddenly turned, and he said, "Old Qin, quickly read that youth's memories." "Good idea." Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up. As long as he read this person's memories, wouldn't he know what the white-eyed wolf was doing? And this youth's cultivation was much weaker than the middle-aged man in black, only at the peak imperishable realm. Right now, Qin Feiyang was at the small success imperishable realm. When he used the rising dragon technique, he could also raise his cultivation to the peak imperishable realm. Coupled with the fact that the young man was currently in a daze, it would be easy to control him. "No need to control him, I've already asked." The white-eyed wolf waved his claws. "What did you ask?" Qin Feiyang and Madman were suspicious. "I asked about their identities." The white-eyed wolf took out 2 facial restoration pills and stuffed them into their mouths. Immediately, the 2 of them recovered their true appearances. A young man in his 20s and an old man with white hair. "It's him?" Madman looked at the youth in astonishment. Zhuo Tianxing asked, "You know him?" He is Su Hua." Madman nodded. "Lord, he is indeed Su Hua. As for this old man, he is the old patriarch of the Su family, Su Hua's grandfather." Elder Yu said. "Su Hua, the old patriarch of the Su family." Zhuo Tianxing didn't react. "Su Hua is Su Yuan's son," Elder Yu explained. "So it's you." Zhuo Tianxing's eyes suddenly flashed with killing intent. As soon as he heard the name Su Yuan, he remembered. That's right. This Su Hua was the one who attacked Madman in the ruins of the Su family. However, even at this time, Su Hua and the old patriarch of the Su family still stared at the white-eyed wolf in horror. They were really scared silly. This made Qin Feiyang and Madman even more curious. Qin Feiyang activated the Rising Dragon's secret art, and his cultivation soared to the perfection immortal realm. Following closely, a puppet imprint appeared and rushed towards the top of Su Hua's head. But suddenly, the white-eyed wolf slapped with his claws, and Su Hua immediately screamed. His entire head instantly burst open, and his divine soul was annihilated on the spot. Bastard, what are you doing? Qin Feiyang glared at the white-eyed wolf. Nothing, I just want to kill him. Why? Are you so interested in his memories? That's fine, you can read the memories of the old patriarch of the Su family. I won't stop you. The white-eyed wolf retreated to the side and laughed. Qin Feiyang's face was dark, and his veins were bulging. The old patriarch of the Su family was a half-step dominator. Did he dare to control him? If he dared, he would have listened to Madman's suggestion at the place where they met and controlled him. Wolf cub, what secrets do you have that you have to hide from us? Madman looked suspiciously at the white-eyed wolf. Just killing 2 little caterpillars and exposing my methods, that's too boring. My style has always been to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. The white-eyed wolf smiled proudly. Shameless. Madman rolled his eyes. Su Hua's dying scream finally woke up the old patriarch of the Su family. Looking at Su Hua lying on the ground with his head smashed, and then seeing that Qin Feiyang and the others had also arrived, his wrinkled face was suddenly covered in dust. Old bastard, you really have big dog guts. You even dared to attack my son. Zhuo Tianqing stepped in front of the old patriarch of the Su family, his entire body overflowing with hostility. Sorry. I was instigated by Su Hua, this unfilial son. Lord Zhuo, can you give me a chance? I will kneel down and give you compensation, as long as you say it, no matter what it is. I will find a way to give it to you. I beg you, please let me go. The old patriarch of the Su family immediately knelt on the ground, kowtowing while begging for mercy. You are his grandfather, and you were instigated by him? Do you think this lord is a fool? Zhuo Tianqing smiled coldly. I don't dare, Lord Zhuo. As long as you let me go, I will agree to anything. The old patriarch of the Su family was terrified. Good. I want your dog life, as well as the lives of everyone in your Su family. Zhuo Tianqing shouted. Don't kill me, let the Su family go. The old patriarch of the Su family's eyes trembled as he roared. It's useless to plead for mercy. Zhuo Tianqing smiled sinisterly, grabbed the old patriarch of the Su family, opened an altar, turned to look at Elder Yu, and said, You take Cheng'er back first, I will go to Tianyuan City. Elder Yu nodded. Qin Feiyang smiled. Uncle, since you are determined to destroy the Su family, why don't you do me a favor? Speak. Zhuo Tianqing said. Qin Feiyang said, Leave the Su family's spirit vein and crystal vein to me. Whether it was the Su family or the Su family, they were all potential threats, so he didn't object to Zhuo Tianqing going to destroy the Su family. Okay. Go back and wait for me, it's all yours. Zhuo Tianqing nodded, then stepped onto the altar and quickly disappeared. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other and smiled. The Su family was much stronger than the Su family, so they definitely had more spirit veins and crystal veins. Let's go. The city lord smiled. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded, summoned Snowflake and said, Take us to the city lord's mansion. With that he gave Snowflake a coordinate. Snowflake had now evolved into a pinnacle-level heaven-defying divine artifact, and it was rumored that it opened a space-time portal. Kid, how many heaven-defying divine artifacts do you have? The city lord looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. So far, there were 7 pinnacle-level heaven-defying divine artifacts. No. In addition to the magic sword that everyone knew, there were 8 of them. This number, even he could only look at the dust. Not much. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. The city lord rolled his eyes. It was not much. Other than these known heaven-defying divine artifacts, this kid definitely had more on him. However, he did not continue to ask, and turned to enter the space-time tunnel. Returning to the city lord's mansion, Elder Yu took Zhuo Xiaoqing to recuperate. The city lord looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two and smiled. This time, I really have to thank you guys. He originally thought that it would be a very complicated matter. And it was indeed a bit complicated, but he didn't expect the white-eyed wolf to solve it so easily. After all, he is senior brother's brother-in-law. We definitely can't just stand by and watch. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. That's true. The city lord laughed, then pondered for a moment and asked, I just heard you say that you want the Su family spirit vein and crystal vein. Do you really need these resources? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. All right then, in addition to the Su family's spirit vein and crystal vein, the 2000 spirit vein and crystal vein that we just brought will also be given to you. The city lord laughed. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned, and then hurriedly cupped his hands and smiled. Thank you, senior. Sigh. I am Xiaoxian's foster father, if you don't mind. You can also call me uncle like Shui Tiansheng. The city lord smiled. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other and smiled, nodding. Okay, uncle. The city lord waved his hand and set up a barrier, smiling. Let Xiaoxian, that girl, come out. I haven't seen her for so many years. I really miss her. Chapter 3100. Qin Feiyang turned around and looked at Frenzy. Why are you looking at me? If a father wants to see his daughter, how can I stop him? Frenzy rolled his eyes at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang burst into laughter. With a thought, Shui Xiaoxian appeared. She was still a little confused when she first appeared. As she was also cultivating, she was pulled out by Qin Feiyang without any preparation. She was a little stunned. Xiaoxian. The city lord spoke. Godfather? Shui Xiaoxian was startled and quickly looked in the direction of the voice. When she saw the city lord, her eyes were filled with joy, and she quickly jumped into the city lord's arms. Cough cough. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. Frenzy coughed and glared at Shui Xiaoxian. Shui Xiaoxian was slightly startled and said unhappily, You're even jealous of this, what's the point? Frenzy could not help but be annoyed and said angrily. Who said I'm jealous? You can hug whoever you want, it's none of my business. Haha. Seeing the two bickering, the city lord could not help but laugh happily. Then he looked at Shui Xiaoxian and said unhappily, You damn girl, you didn't even think to look at the clothes after so many years. I really doted on you in the past for nothing. I'm just afraid of causing trouble for you, Shui Xiaoxian said. You're so sensible. The city lord rubbed Shui Xiaoxian's head and said to Frenzy, Kid, I've been hugging Xiaoxian since she was born. Do you have a problem with that? Do I dare to have a problem with that? Frenzy looked displeased. Haha. The city lord could not help but laugh again. Of course he would not be angry, because the more Frenzy was like this, the more it proved that he cared about his precious daughter. Although he was only a godfather, he had treated Shui Xiaoxian as his biological daughter since she was young. Now that he saw a man who cared so much about his daughter, of course he was happy. At this moment, Elder Yu walked in. Grandpa Yu, long time no see. Did you miss me? Shui Xiaoxian ran up and giggled. Yes. Elder Yu rubbed Shui Xiaoxian's head lovingly. How's Xiao? The city lord asked. His injuries have stabilized, he'll be fine after a few days. Old man Yu smiled. That's good. The city lord nodded. Who is Xiaocheng? Shui Xiaoxian was confused. Elder Yu smiled. Little Cheng is your younger brother. Little brother? When did I have a younger brother? Shui Xiaoxian was surprised. Elder Yu replied, Your father and mother gave birth to her a few years ago. They didn't tell me about such a big thing. Do they still treat me as their daughter? We'll talk about it later. I already have so many older brothers. Why would I want a younger brother? Shui Xiaoxian's face was filled with displeasure. The city lord and Elder Yu looked at each other, then turned to Qin Feiyang and Madman. They transmitted their voices. She still doesn't know? Yes. She doesn't know anything. Madman thought. It's good that you don't know, lest you feel sad. The city lord nodded. But she'll find out sooner or later. Madman frowned. That's true. All right then. When old Zhuo returns, I'll get him to find a chance to tell Xiaoxian. The city lord transmitted his voice. Zhuo Tianxing definitely wouldn't be able to return anytime soon. This was because Zhuo Tianxing didn't have anything like a space-time teleportation artifact, so he could only return by opening the altar. One had to know. It would take half a day to travel from Wind Sea City to Black Crow Mountain. And Zhuo Tianxing had to go to Tianyuan City first. After destroying the Su family, he would rush back from Tianyuan City. This would probably take at least half a day. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then looked at the city lord and said, "Uncle, there's something I want to discuss with you." "Why are you so polite? Just say it." The city lord smiled. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "It has nothing to do with me. It's about Yueqing." "Yueqing?" The city lord was stunned. "It's the tower master of Tianyua building," Qin Feiyang said. "So it's her. What's wrong with her?" The city lord was suspicious. "Nothing. I just want to ask you guys to take care of Tianyua building in the future," Qin Feiyang said. "What's your relationship with her?" The city lord was curious. "Nothing. It's just that it's not easy for her to be a woman." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "I see. Okay. This is just a small matter." The city lord smiled. "Thank you very much then." Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled. The city lord waved his hand. Next, Qin Feiyang followed Elder Yu to the backyard. Frenzy and Zhuo Xiaoxian stayed in the main hall to chat with the city lord. In the backyard, Yueqing was still sitting alone in the courtyard, staring at the sky in a daze. "Xiaoqing," Qin Feiyang spoke. "Qin Dage." Yueqing hurriedly got up. When she saw Elder Yu, she quickly bowed and said, "Greetings, Elder Yu." "No need to be so polite." Elder Yu waved his hand and smiled. Yueqing was slightly stunned. Obviously, she found that Elder Yu's attitude towards her was a little different. "Zhuo Xiaoqing has been rescued. The person who kidnapped Zhuo Xiaoqing is an acquaintance of ours." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. "An acquaintance?" Yueqing was stunned. "He is Su Yuan's eldest son, Su Hua, and the old patriarch of the Su family, which is Su Hua's grandfather." Qin Feiyang nodded. "So it's them. It seems that they kidnapped Zhuo Xiaoqing to take revenge on the deputy city lord." Yueqing muttered. "After all, it's the hatred of extermination." Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. To be honest, Zhuo Tianxing's methods were indeed ruthless, but the Su family was not worthy of sympathy. Yueqing asked, "Then can I leave now?" "Of course, you can leave at any time." Qin Feiyang nodded and then said, "But before you leave, you and Elder Yu must establish a contract bridge." And Yueqing was stunned and looked at Qin Feiyang with some confusion. Elder Yu took out the transmission stone and smiled faintly. "In the future, if you encounter any trouble in Tianyua Lu, you can send me a message." This, Yueqing looked at Elder Yu in astonishment. Was he going to help her in Tianyua Lu? She originally thought that even if she rescued Zhuo Xiaoqing this time, the city lord's mansion would definitely not let her go easily. However, she did not expect that not only did the city lord's mansion not make things difficult for her, but also wanted Tianyua Lu to back her up. In other words, it was a blessing in disguise? This surprise came too suddenly and was a little unexpected. "What's wrong?" Still putting on airs, "Don't you want to establish a contract bridge with Elder Yu?" Qin Feiyang looked at her in amusement. No. Yueqing hurriedly waved her hand and said, "I'm a little flattered and can't get used to it." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Yueqing took out the transmission stone and looked at Elder Yu. "Then I'll have to trouble you in the future." Elder Yu waved his hand, and the two quickly established a contract bridge. Elder Yu put away the transmission stone and looked at the two with a smile. "Then you two chat. This old man will go back first. Take care." Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. After Elder Yu left, Yueqing looked at Qin Feiyang and asked curiously, "Qin Dage, it feels like the people in the city lord's mansion are very polite to you? Vice leader wants to reconcile with me. How can they not be polite to me?" Qin Feiyang smiled. "Then do you really want to reconcile?" Yueqing asked. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and shook his head. "I don't know, let's see how it goes." "Then you have to be careful. I heard that this vice leader is not a good person," Yueqing warned. I'll be careful. Go back quickly. Miao must be worried to death after being locked up in the city lord's mansion for a few days. Qin Feiyang smiled. Then Yueqing looked at the transmission stone in her hand, and then looked at Qin Feiyang. Her meaning was self-evident. She wanted to establish a contract bridge with Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang smiled and took out the transmission stone. After proposing a contract bridge, Yueqing put away the transmission stone and bowed. Thank you, Qin Dage. She knew in her heart that the city lord's mansion wanted to help her. It must be related to Qin Feiyang. But she also knew that some things could not be said. It was fine as long as she understood it in her heart. Then she did not stay any longer, opened an altar and left. After watching Yueqing leave, Qin Feiyang also put away the transmission stone, glanced at the courtyard, and turned to walk in the direction of the main hall. He was very concerned about Yin Xiang's disappearance, even hiding it from Yueqing. Moreover, even the city lord's mansion could not find out his background. He could not understand where this person came from. Half a day passed. Whoosh! A bloody figure appeared in the sky above the city lord's mansion. It was Zhuo Tiansheng. When Qin Feiyang and the others sensed Zhuo Tiansheng's aura, they immediately frowned. Qin Feiyang immediately sent Zhuo Shaoxian to the Black Tortoise realm, then followed the city lord and old man Yu, flying out and looking at Zhuo Tiansheng. Old Zhuo, what happened to you? The city lord was shocked. Crazy and Qin Feiyang looked at each other and frowned. How could he be so heavily injured? One had to know. Zhuo Tiansheng was a late-stage ruler, and he also had a high-grade divine artifact. And the strongest person in the Su family was the Su family patriarch, a half-step ruler. Not to mention that the Su family patriarch was already crippled. Even if he was not, he could not have hurt Zhuo Tiansheng. Zhuo Tiansheng landed in front of them and sighed. It's a long story. Boom. Before he finished, two more terrifying auras descended. They looked up and saw two middle-aged men in black armor descending in the sky. Their figures were tall and sturdy, and they each held a black spear in their hands. They were serious in speech and manner, and the armor on their chests was engraved with the mark of a skull. What's going on? Why are they here? The city lord and old man Yu were shocked. Qin Feiyang and Crazy looked at the city lord and old man Yu suspiciously. Who were these two black-armored men? Even the city lord and old man Yu were shocked. Zhuo Tiansheng said in a deep voice. They were the ones who chased me all the way and made me like this. What? The city lord's expression changed. Uncle, who are they? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. You don't even know them? The city lord was stunned. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Do you see the mark on their chests? That's the mark of the Demon Palace's Law Enforcement Hall. They're law enforcers of the Demon Palace. In the Eastern continent, they have absolute power over life and death. The city lord's expression was gloomy. Law enforcers of the Demon Palace? Qin Feiyang and Crazy looked at each other, and sized up the two black-armored men. From their auras, they could tell that they were the same as Zhuo Tiansheng, late-stage rulers. Moreover, the spears in their hands were high-grade heaven-defying divine artifacts. The city lord took a deep breath and looked at the two of them. Is there a misunderstanding between the two of you? Misunderstanding. We saw them slaughter the Su family with our own eyes. Is this a misunderstanding? One of the black-armored men spoke with a bone-chilling tone. Chapter 3101. The city lord was slightly taken aback. He turned to look at Zhuo Tiansheng and frowned. Old Zhuo, didn't you explain to them? Yes. But they didn't believe Su Jingshan. Zhuo Tiansheng was a little angry. Su Jingshan? Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other and frowned. This person didn't die. That's right. He wasn't at home at that time, so he was lucky enough to escape. Zhuo Tiansheng snorted coldly. Where is Su Jingshan? Qin Feiyang looked up at the two law enforcers. One of them waved his hand, and Su Jingshan immediately appeared out of thin air. It's really you. Madman smiled coldly. Back then in the ruins of the Su family, it was this person who saved Su Hua from his hands. Who are you? Su Jingshan looked at Madman suspiciously. Don't care who I am. You actually dare to bite us in front of the law enforcers of the Demon Palace. You have guts. Madman said. This is the truth. My Su family has never provoked Zhuo Tiansheng. Kidnapping Zhuo Xiaocheng is even more nonsense. Su Jingshan's face was full of resentment. Zhuo Tiansheng said angrily. Bastard, don't you feel guilty saying these words? The one who should feel pain is you. Not only did you cruelly slaughter the Su family of Tianfeng City, but you also killed our Su family. You even stole all of our Su family's spirit vein and crystal vein. I really don't know how we offended your rogue cultivator alliance that you have to treat us so cruelly. Su Jingshan roared. When Zhuo Tiansheng heard this, he was so angry that his body trembled. He had never seen such a shameless person. Look, isn't that the law enforcers of the Demon Palace? Why did they appear in Wuxia City? And the Vice City Lord, why is he injured all over? The people of the City Lord's mansion below also noticed the situation above, and their faces were full of surprise. The City Lord glanced at Su Jingshan, looked at the two law enforcers and cupped his hands. Both of you, this matter was indeed started by Su Hua and the Su family. That's just your side of the story. The two were expressionless. But it's true. They kidnapped old Zhuo's son first. Then, they used old Zhuo's son as a bargaining chip to threaten us. They wanted 5 pinnacle-grade heaven-defying divine artifacts, 2,000 spirit veins and crystal veins. Tell me, if it were you guys, would you be able to endure it? The City Lord frowned. Who can prove it? The two of them spoke. We can prove it. Qin Feiyang said. Madman and White-Eyed Wolf nodded in agreement. You? The two of them sized up Qin Feiyang's group, as well as the White-Eyed Wolf, and said coldly, You are obviously from the City Lord's mansion. Can your words be used as evidence? But that's the truth. Zhuo Xiaoqing is still lying at home. This Su Jingshan is clearly using you as cannon fodder. Qin Feiyang said. What you said may not be the truth. Su Jingshan's words may not be lies. This matter still needs to be investigated. One of the enforcers spoke. Then go and investigate. Go and ask Wuxia City. Who doesn't know that old Zhuo's son has been kidnapped? The City Lord was about to lose his patience. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Demon Palace were originally enemies. The fact that he could explain it again and again was already very polite. Although you're right, who saw with their own eyes that it was Su Hua and the Su family who kidnapped Zhuo Tianxing's son. No matter what, Zhuo Tianxing must follow us to the Demon Palace and cooperate with the investigation. If this matter is really Su Hua and the Su family's fault, we will let him go and kill Su Jingshan. But if not, as a disciple of the Demon Palace, Su Hua is not someone you can kill as you wish. The two enforcers waved the long spears in their hands, and a terrifying sharpness suddenly rolled out. What's going on? The people outside the City Lord's mansion were also alarmed by this sharpness. Everyone looked up at the City Lord's mansion. What a joke. The people of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance entered your Demon Palace, especially the Law Enforcement Hall. How can they survive? The City Lord laughed angrily, and a powerful aura spread out. Are you openly provoking us? The two of them raised their eyebrows. The City Lord said, Don't be mistaken. You're the ones who were rude and unreasonable first. Is it that difficult to cooperate with our investigation? Do you really think that your Rogue Cultivator Alliance is qualified to challenge my Demon Palace? A monstrous killing intent suddenly surged out from the two of them. Whether we're qualified or not, we'll know once we try. The City Lord's killing intent was also undisguised. Elder Yu and Zhuo Tianxing stood beside the City Lord and stared at the two of them with a gloomy face. Swords were drawn. The atmosphere was exceptionally solemn. Seeing this scene, Su Jingshan's eyes were filled with a cold smile. Right. That's it, let's fight. Don't. Qin Feiyang stepped forward to smooth things over. He looked at the two enforcers and said with a smile, The two of you, let's talk in private. Get lost. One of the enforcers directly slapped Qin Feiyang, and Qin Feiyang was sent flying on the spot. Blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Seeing this, the madman and the white-eyed wolf were immediately enraged and shouted, I've given you face, haven't I? The two of them looked at the madman and the white-eyed wolf with contempt. A wisp of divine power shot out towards the man and the wolf. You've gone too far. The city lord took a step forward and slapped out with his hand. The two wisps of divine power immediately shattered. You really want to make a move? The two of them raised their brows and looked down at Mo Lu. They shouted, Sun Jingzhong, quickly come over and take down the city lord of Wind Sea City. Although they were great masters, they weren't afraid of the city lord at all. This was because the tower lord Sun Jingzhong was also from the demon palace. Moreover, although Sun Jingzhong's cultivation was stronger than theirs, he had to listen to them. This was because they were the enforcers of the demon palace and had supreme authority. Whoosh! Sun Jingzhong flew into the sky and looked at Qin Feiyang and the others. He then looked at the two enforcers and sighed at Zhuo Tiansheng. Follow them to the demon palace and cooperate with the investigation. The ones at fault are Su Hua and the Su family. Why should I cooperate? Zhuo Tiansheng said angrily. Don't bite people. A man should dare to take responsibility for his actions. Su Jingshan also shouted. Damn you, I'm going to kill you. Zhuo Tiansheng was furious and slapped toward Su Jingshan. But at this moment, Sun Jingzhong stepped in front of Su Jingshan and grabbed Zhuo Tiansheng's wrist. He shook his head and said, Don't make it difficult for this old man. He didn't recognize Qin Feiyang. Madman, white-eyed wolf. If he did, he definitely wouldn't think so. The city lord glanced at Sun Jingzhong and Su Jingshan. He was so angry that he laughed. Your demon palace really knows how to bully people. All right, let's go outside the city to avoid affecting the innocent. Obviously, this was the rhythm of a war. Shut up, all of you. But at this moment, Qin Feiyang suddenly shouted and landed beside Madman and White-Eyed Wolf. He looked at the two enforcers gloomily. Are you looking for death? The two raised their eyebrows. A mere small immortal realm cultivator dared to shout at them? Seeing that you're enforcers of the demon palace, I won't pursue the matter of you injuring me this time. But if there's a next time, even if the emperor comes down, I'll kill you. Qin Feiyang said word by word. Haha. How arrogant. The two enforcers laughed, but it was full of ridicule. How arrogant. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. With a flip of his hand, a token appeared in his palm. Sun Jingzhong and the two enforcers immediately looked at the token. Their laughter stopped abruptly and was slowly replaced by shock. That's right. The token that Qin Feiyang took out was the identity token that Elder Hua gave him. Zhuo Tiansheng and the other two were also shocked. They knew that Elder Hua wanted Qin Feiyang and the others to join the demon palace, but they didn't expect him to be so generous as to give the identity token to this kid. It could be seen that Elder Hua cared about Qin Feiyang and the others. What's going on? Su Jingshan looked at their reactions and also looked at the token. His eyes were full of shock. Whose token is this? How can it make the enforcers of the demon palace so shocked? Suddenly, Sun Jingzhong quivered and looked up at Qin Feiyang, Zhuo Tiansheng, and the white-eyed wolf. He thought to himself, could it be that you guys are, Qin Feiyang nodded. Sun Jingzhong's expression froze. He looked up at the two enforcers and said with a smile, This must be a misunderstanding. The two enforcers looked at each other, their eyes full of suspicion. Sun Jingzhong could guess the identity of Qin Feiyang and the others, but the two enforcers couldn't. This was because they didn't know the relationship between Qin Feiyang and the others and Elder Hua. Qin Feiyang kept the token. Under his deliberate concealment, only the three enforcers of the city lord and Sun Jingzhong saw the token. Qin Feiyang looked at the two enforcers and said calmly, Can my words be used as evidence? The two enforcers remained silent. I saw it with my own eyes. Su Hua wasn't killed by Zhuo Tiansheng and the others. We killed him, Qin Feiyang said. The white-eyed wolf looked at the two enforcers, pinched his nose and nodded. Yes, I killed him personally. What do you want? The two enforcers looked at Qin Feiyang, Zhuo Tiansheng, and the white-eyed wolf with flickering eyes. You'd better not do anything to them. Otherwise, if you anger them, even I can't protect you. Sun Jingzhong transmitted his voice. Hearing this, the two enforcers' pupils shrank. They knew Sun Jingzhong well. He wasn't someone who would joke around. It seemed that this token was indeed Elder Hua's. We're sorry. We were blind before and offended you. The two enforcers looked at each other, then looked at Qin Feiyang, Zhuo Tiansheng, and the white-eyed wolf and bowed. How should we deal with this matter? Qin Feiyang asked. The two enforcers immediately turned to look at Su Jingshan. Lords, I'm telling the truth. I didn't lie to you. The rogue cultivator alliance really killed the innocent. Su Jingshan's expression changed as he hurriedly shouted. He never expected that a token would make the enforcers believe him. Stop quibbling. Do you know their identity? Do you know who that token belongs to? Sun Jingzhong looked at Su Jingshan and said indifferently. Identity? Su Jingshan's expression stiffened as he asked. What is their identity? They are people you can never afford to offend. Sun Jingzhong snorted coldly. Spare me. Su Jingshan immediately knelt in the void. Since Sun Jingzhong said so, the two enforcers and the dog must have a great relationship with the demon palace. So, you're really lying to us? The two enforcers stared at Su Jingshan gloomily. Su Jingshan's face was incomparably flustered. It's obvious. If I didn't lie, why would he be so flustered? Frenzy said indifferently. Chapter 3102. You deserve to die. The two law enforcers were furious. Their palms landed on Su Jingshan's body. Accompanied by a shrill scream, Su Jingshan was killed on the spot. When Zhuo Tiansheng saw this scene, he felt a lot more comfortable. I'm sorry. We were foolish and believed his slanderous words. We even injured you. You can punish us however you want. The two enforcers turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said apologetically. Forget it. You don't know the truth. But don't be so arrogant in the future. After all, you are the enforcers of the demonic palace. Your actions represent the demonic palace. The demonic palace gave you the power not to be tyrannical, but to uphold justice and protect the people of the Eastern continent. Qin Feiyang said. Thank you for your advice. We will remember it. The two enforcers bowed. All right then. Go back. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Yes. The two enforcers nodded and their attitude changed. They were respectful and opened an altar and left. Phew. Sun Jingzhong heaved a sigh of relief. It was finally resolved. Previously, he was afraid that these two law enforcers were arrogant and would find some excuse to attack Qin Feiyang and the others. The consequences would be unimaginable. The three enforcers heaved a sigh of relief. Are you all right? Zhuo Tiansheng looked at Qin Feiyang with concern. I'm fine. Qin Feiyang took out a divine life pill and threw it into his mouth. Sun Jingzhong looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile. Then I'll take my leave. Come to the demonic palace when you're free. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. After Sun Jingzhong left, Zhuo Tiansheng immediately asked, Why do you have Elder Hua's identity token? He gave it to me, Qin Feiyang said. This? The three enforcers looked at each other. What's wrong with this? Chu Yin gave us her identity token before, but we gave it away. White-eyed Wolf said indifferently. The three of them were stunned, not knowing what to say. With Chu Yun's status in the demonic palace, she could do whatever she wanted in the Eastern continent with her identity token. But these three fellows actually gave it to someone else. Wasn't this a reckless waste of resources? Let's go down, the city lord said. The group returned to the city lord's mansion's conference hall. Who are these people? Even the enforcers of the Devil Palace are so respectful in front of them. It's not just the enforcers of the Demon Royal Halls. Look at Sun Jingzhong's attitude. It's as if he has seen some great character. As soon as Qin Feiyang and the others left, everyone started discussing in low voices. Inside the main hall, Zhuo Tiansheng swallowed a divine life pill and shook his head at Qin Feiyang. It's all thanks to you this time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to figure it out even if I had 100 mouths. It's a piece of cake. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Old Zhuo, have you brought back the Su family's spirit vein and crystal vein? The city lord asked. Yes. Zhuo Tiansheng nodded. Then give them all to them. Also, Give them the 2,000 spirit vein and crystal vein that you brought this morning. The city lord said with a smile. Okay. Zhuo Tianqing nodded straightforwardly. He walked out of the main hall and took out the spirit vein and crystal vein from the spatial divine item. Not to mention anything else, just based on the current relationship between Frenzy and Zhuo Xiaoxian. He couldn't be stingy. Qin Feiyang didn't stand on ceremony and took them all. As he expected, the Su family's spirit vein and crystal vein far exceeded the Su family's. There were more than 5,000 of them, and the Su family only had 500 to 600 of them. Qin Feiyang, can you take us to your spatial divine item for a stroll? The city lord suddenly looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. This? Qin Feiyang hesitated. I'm really curious. What kind of spatial divine item has such a terrifying time formation? Of course, if you're still worried, just pretend I didn't say anything. The city lord smiled. Maybe in the future, there will be a chance. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. All right, I won't force you. The city lord was also very tactful and nodded with a smile. All right then, Zhuo Xiaoqing's matter has been resolved. We'll take our leave first. Qin Feiyang looked at the three of them and said. Where are we going? Zhuo Tianqing hurriedly asked. Mount Kanglan Snow Mountain. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and opened an altar. Are you really going? Zhuo Tianqing was stunned and hurriedly said. I know I can't stop you, but before you go you'd better change your appearance. Got it. Qin Feiyang nodded. Zhuo Tianqing said this out of consideration for the safety of the City Lord Mansion, because if the deputy leader knew that they had come to the City Lord Mansion and helped save Zhuo Xiaoqing, he would definitely suspect their relationship. After the two people and the wolf left, the City Lord couldn't help but frown. What's wrong? Zhuo Tianqing and Old Yu looked at him suspiciously. To be honest, compared to the Demon Palace, we have more advantages. The City Lord sighed. Advantages? The two of them looked at each other, even more puzzled. Let them join our itinerant cultivator alliance. With Xiaoxian's relationship, the chances of them joining our itinerant cultivator alliance are definitely higher than the Demon Palace. But I just don't know what the deputy leader is thinking. He insisted on killing him. Look at it now. Things have turned out this way. The city lord looked melancholic. Zhuo Tianqing smiled and said, Doesn't the deputy leader want to reconcile now? After so many things have happened, do you think Qin Feiyang and the others will reconcile with the deputy leader? In my opinion, they went to the Kanglan Snow Mountain this time to cause trouble. The city lord shook his head and sighed. If we really can't reconcile, how are we going to face Qin Feiyang and the others in the future? Zhuo Tianqing frowned. On one side was the itinerant cultivator alliance, and on the other side was his future son-in-law. It was a little uncomfortable to be sandwiched in the middle. We'll talk about it when the time comes. Perhaps there will be other possibilities in the future. The city lord shook his head. Now he only hoped that the deputy leader could recognize the value of Qin Feiyang and the others and not make things irreparable. At the same time, outside Wind Sea City, in the sky above a mountain range, two black-armored men stood side by side, holding a sound transmission godstone in their hands. Buzz. Suddenly, a shadow appeared. It was Chu Yin. Greetings, Miss Yin. The two of them bowed. What's the matter? Chu Yin looked at them suspiciously. Earlier, we saw a person in Wind Sea City. He had Elder He's identity token in his hand. We just wanted to confirm its authenticity. The two of them recounted the situation back then in detail. There's no need to think about it. It must be that kid again. Chu Yin shook her head. That kid? The two of them were stunned and said suspiciously, He's clearly a middle-aged man. How could he be a kid? Are you stupid? Don't you know that there's something called the illusory form pill in this world? Chu Yin glared at the two of them in annoyance. So that's how it is. Then who exactly is he? The two of them were puzzled. It doesn't matter who they are. What's important is that you're lucky that you didn't offend them. Otherwise, not to mention Elder Hua, even the hall master won't let you off easily. In the future, when you encounter such a thing, use your brain more. Don't be used by others again. Chu Yin said. Yes. The two of them were shocked. Even the hall master wouldn't let them off easily? Then wouldn't these 2 people and 1 dog be related to the hall master? They rejoiced in their hearts. Fortunately, Sun Jingzhong was present. Otherwise, they would be in big trouble this time. Demon Palace. Little Yin, you're reprimanding your subordinates again. Elder Hua happened to come to look for Chu Yin and chuckled. Chu Yin put away the divine sound transmission stone and shook her head. It's all because of Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo. What are they doing now? Elder Hua was stunned. Chu Yin briefly explained what had happened. Haha. This is a good thing. Because this way, they will know the importance of this old man's token. In the future, they won't be like your token and give it to others. Elder Hua laughed. Can you not bring up the pot that doesn't boil? Chu Yun's face darkened. When she thought of Qin Feiyang giving the token to Su Yang, she couldn't help but get angry. All right. Elder Hua waved his hand and sat on a chair at the side. He said, I came to look for you because of Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo. What's wrong? Chu Yin was suspicious. You should have heard the news that the deputy leader wants to reconcile with them, right? Elder Hua said. Yes. Chu Yin nodded. Say, if they really reconcile with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, then wouldn't everything we've done be in vain? Elder Hua sighed. I don't think they'll really reconcile. Chu Yin frowned. In the past, this old man also thought the same, but this old man suddenly remembered that there is still a variable. Elder Hua said. Chu Yin was stunned and asked suspiciously, what variable? Zhuo Xiaoxian. This Zhuo Xiaoxian is Zhuo Tianxing's daughter, and Zhuo Xiaoxian and Madman Mo are in love now. I'm worried that if they really reconcile, will they join the Rogue Cultivator Alliance because of Zhuo Xiaoxian? Elder Hua looked worried. This? Chu Yin also fell silent. Elder Hua suddenly grinned and looked at Chu Yin. Xiao Yin, why don't you put up a honey trap or something? Get lost. Chu Yun's face instantly darkened. Seeing this, Elder Hua quickly waved his hand and said, I'm just joking. Don't take it seriously. How can you joke like this? Old thing, you're already so old. Aren't you wicked? Chu Yun's face was filled with anger. Elder Hua smiled embarrassedly and said, How about this? Let's persuade Zhuo Tianxing to join our demon hall. Chu Yin was stunned. After pondering for a while, she nodded and said, This idea is feasible. As long as Zhuo Tianxing joins our demon hall, then Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo will naturally not go to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. But what? Elder Hua looked at her in confusion. Zhuo Tianxing is loyal to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Can you persuade him? Moreover, as far as I know, the city lord of Wind Sea City is Zhuo Xiaoxian's foster father. And this city lord also dotes on her a lot. It's useless to just persuade Zhuo Tianxing. We have to persuade him as well. Chu Yin shook her head. Nothing in this world is difficult for those who are willing. Besides, our demon hall is so much stronger than the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. As long as we let them weigh the pros and cons, they will understand. I'll leave this matter to you. Elder Hua looked at Chu Yin with a smile on his face. Me again? Chu Yin frowned. If it's not you, then it's me? This old man's old arms and legs are running around all day. Shouldn't you feel sorry for me? Besides, this is all for the good of the demon hall. In short, we have to erase all the uncertain factors in advance and hold Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo tightly in our hands. Then it's settled. Thank you for your hard work. I'll wait for your good news. Elder Hua chuckled, then turned around with his hands behind his back and leisurely walked away, leaving Chu Yin standing there alone and sulking. Ever since Qin Feiyang and Madman came to the Sky Cloud realm, they had been circling around the two of them all day long. Chapter 3103. Azure Wave Snow Mountain. Snow flew everywhere, and the cold air was bone-chilling. As far as the eye could see, everything was snow-white. Thick cedar trees stood stubbornly between the snow mountains. Snow covered their branches and leaves. From afar, they looked like snow-white umbrellas. There were also all kinds of fierce beasts hiding in the mountains. There were large snow bears, small and agile snow foxes. Their cultivation was also very strong. There were imperishable realm and ruler realm. In short, this was a very dangerous place. Shua. Suddenly, two people and one wolf appeared above a glacier. It was Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. However, they had changed their appearances. Qin Feiyang and Madman had changed their appearances into two old men with white hair. They were in their 70s or 80s and were trembling as if they couldn't even walk properly. The white-eyed wolf turned into a yellow old wolf. The reason why he added the word old was because it looked really old right now. The hair on his body was dim and dull, and some parts of his body were even shedding. His eyes were dim and lifeless, as if he was about to die. Is there a need to do this? The white-eyed wolf was a bit unhappy with its current appearance. Didn't you hear Elder Hua say that even he needs to use a ruler weapon to enter the Alliance capital? You can imagine how dangerous this place is. Therefore, it is necessary to hide and cover up. Madman said. Elder Hua also said that the Azure Wave Snow Mountain has a barrier. Not to mention entering the Alliance capital, even entering the barrier would be very difficult. Qin Feiyang muttered. What's so difficult about that? Just let Qin Batian use the laws of space and time to bring us in. But have you really thought about it? This isn't a joke. Madman looked at Qin Feiyang with a serious expression. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and looked at the man and wolf. If I say we don't go now, will you agree? No. Madman and the white-eyed wolf grinned. They came for the Alliance capital. If they didn't go now, wouldn't they have come for nothing? That's right. Let's go and take a look at the situation. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he retracted his aura and flew forward. The madman and the white-eyed wolf also retracted their auras to the extreme. About several hundred breaths later, two people and one wolf suddenly stopped and looked at the glacier in front of them. In front of them was still an endless glacier, but there was no snow on the mountains or on the trees. They looked up at the sky again and found that the snowflakes that were falling from the sky seemed to have met something high up in the sky. They immediately dissipated and melted. Qin Feiyang walked over, raised his arm, and reached into the void. Immediately, he came into contact with an invisible object in the void, and with a slight push, a screen of light appeared. There really is a barrier. Qin Feiyang muttered. I feel that this spirit formation is pretty strong. The madman and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other and quickly walked over to examine the barrier. The owner of this barrier must be the Alliance Master of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. As the Alliance Master of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, his strength must have reached the peak, which is the peak of the Dominator realm. How could the barrier he set up be weak? Quickly hide. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's expression changed. He grabbed the madman and the white-eyed wolf, activated the concealment technique, and instantly hid in the void. What's wrong? The madman and the white-eyed wolf looked at him in surprise. There's someone. Qin Feiyang stared ahead. After Qin Feiyang retracted his arm, the screen of light that appeared once again hid in the void. Shua. About 2 to 3 breaths later, a burly figure descended on an ice mountain in front of them. It was a middle-aged man about 1.9 meters tall. Although the cold wind was bone-piercing, he was only wearing a pair of large pants, revealing his muscles that were filled with explosive power. Judging from his aura, he should be a peak dominator. The madman transmitted. At the same time, the middle-aged man scanned the void and frowned slightly. What's going on? Previously, I clearly felt a reaction from the barrier here. Why is there nothing now? The middle-aged man muttered. Suddenly, he stepped forward and landed in front of the barrier, facing Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They were extremely nervous. Don't release your divine sense. The madman was silently waiting in his heart. Although the concealment technique could hide them, it couldn't block divine sense. The divine moonjade pendant also couldn't. This was because the divine moonjade pendant could only block divine sense below the dominator realm. Suddenly, the middle-aged man looked at Qin Feiyang's feet. On the snow, there were many footprints. Not good. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf's expressions changed. They could hide in the void, but they couldn't hide the footprints they left behind. They had to make a prompt decision. Qin Feiyang brought the madman and the white-eyed wolf into the black tortoise world. He immediately controlled the Black Tortoise world and flew away without looking back. Just as Qin Feiyang's group was escaping, the middle-aged man's eyes flashed. He took out a token and pressed it against the void. The light screen appeared again and quickly cracked. Immediately after, the middle-aged man stepped out of the crack. His divine sense surged out like a tide. He actually waited until he came out before releasing his divine sense. Could it be that this barrier has the ability to isolate divine sense? The madman looked at the middle-aged man and couldn't help but frown. In the blink of an eye, the middle-aged man's divine sense covered the sky. As a peak dominator, his speed was naturally not something Qin Feiyang could compare to. His divine sense quickly caught up to the Black Tortoise world. "Who is it?" the middle-aged man suddenly shouted. He put away the token and stepped out, chasing after the Black Tortoise world. "What do we do?" the white-eyed wolf asked in panic. "Is there even a need to ask? Go out and kill him," the madman said. "Me?" the white-eyed wolf was astonished. "If it's not you, then it's us. Don't try to hide anything. You could even insta-kill the Su family patriarch. You're definitely more than enough to deal with him." The madman laughed. "Scram. That old man from the Su family is only a half-step dominator, but this person is a peak dominator. Are they on the same level?" The white-eyed wolf angrily glared at him. "Being so humble isn't like you." The madman laughed in ridicule. "I don't have time to talk nonsense with you." The white-eyed wolf glared at him, then turned to Qin Feiyang. "He's too fast. We won't be able to escape." Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. Suddenly, a terrifying smile appeared in his eyes. "Since we can't escape, then let's kill him. A peak dominator wasn't undefeatable." "Right. Kill him. Doesn't he have a token to open the barrier? As long as we have this token, we can freely enter and exit the barrier." The madman laughed. "Then let's do it." The white-eyed wolf laughed. The two people and one wolf immediately hit it off. They were also a bit excited. This was the first time they had truly fought a peak dominator. Although they had had conflicts with Zhuo Tianxing before, they had never truly fought. "Still want to run?" The middle-aged man's eyes flashed coldly as his divine sense locked onto the Black Tortoise world. With a wave of his hand, a surge of divine power surged toward the Black Tortoise world. At the same time, he activated a support-type divine art, doubling his speed. Seeing the middle-aged man close the distance between them, the madman frowned. "We're not far enough. If we act now, we'll probably alarm the people of the Alliance capital." Qin Feiyang nodded. The middle-aged man wasn't that scary, but if the people of the Alliance capital were alerted, it would be difficult. "Why don't we lure him to the Black Tortoise world?" The white-eyed wolf suddenly spoke. "What?" The madman and Qin Feiyang looked at him in shock. Luring him to the Black Tortoise world. Wasn't that the same as luring a wolf into the house? "We'll lure him to the western region. This way he won't harm the creatures of the Black Tortoise world," the white-eyed wolf said. "That's right." The madman slapped his head. The western region was specifically used to store fresh blood. Without a single creature, even if they fought in the western region, they wouldn't harm the innocent. The idea isn't bad, but can the Black Tortoise world withstand a battle of this level? Qin Feiyang frowned. After all, the other party was a peak dominator. It should be able to. Because after the Black Tortoise world fused with the ancient castle, its strength is the same as the ancient castle. Right now, the ancient castle is a dominator weapon, so the Black Tortoise world's strength is equivalent to a dominator weapon. The madman guessed. Qin Feiyang clenched his teeth and nodded. "Okay, let's close the door and beat the dog." With that, he closed his eyes and released his perception. He found that many creatures in the western region were bleeding blood. "Thank you for your help. There will be a great battle later. In order to avoid harming you, I'll send you out of the western region first," Qin Feiyang said in his mind, transmitting it into the minds of all the creatures. A great battle? The creatures who were bleeding couldn't help but be stunned. But before they could react, they felt their bodies lighten. And the next moment, they appeared in the other three regions. This way, there really wasn't a single creature in the entire western region. Qin Feiyang also retracted his perception and appeared in the sky above the western region with the madman and the white-eyed wolf. The sea of blood below surged, emitting a monstrous murderous aura. Now there's a problem. How do we get him in? If your cultivation is stronger than his, you can forcefully bring him in. But you're only at the peak of the immortal realm. The difference is too big. The white-eyed wolf frowned. That's simple. I need Snowflake's help. Qin Feiyang smiled and called Snowflake out of the land of origin. Something else? There was a trace of impatience in Snowflake's voice. The white-eyed wolf immediately said angrily, "We asked you to cultivate in the land of origin, and now you're helping us do something. What's with the attitude?" Okay. Please tell me what to do." Snowflake was helpless. She had no choice but to bow to these villains under the eaves. "I don't have time to explain to you now. When we go out later, just do as I say." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he left the Black Tortoise realm with Snowflake. Outside, the middle-aged man was already close. Suddenly, seeing Qin Feiyang and Snowflake appear, the man was slightly stunned. "We just happened to pass by. We mean no harm," Qin Feiyang hurriedly explained, looking terrified. "Passing by?" When the middle-aged man heard this, he immediately sneered and said, "Passing by and stopping in front of the barrier. Are you stupid, or do you think I'm stupid and easy to fool?" Chapter 3104. Looks like you're not stupid. Qin Feiyang laughed hoarsely. His voice was like that of an old man. "You're courting death." The middle-aged man's eyes flashed coldly. His divine power surged toward Qin Feiyang and Snowflake. Qin Feiyang immediately said, "Open the passage to the western region." Snowflake heard him. As the space-time law emerged, a space-time passage appeared. Others couldn't enter the Black Tortoise world because of the castle. But as one of them, it naturally wouldn't stop them. The passage to the western region was quickly completed. "Go." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and took Snowflake to escape into the passage. Space-time teleportation. I didn't expect there to be such a heaven-defying divine artifact. But do you think it's possible to escape from under my nose? The middle-aged man smiled disdainfully. He activated the auxiliary divine technique to the extreme and instantly rushed into the space-time passage. However, when he rushed out from the other side of the space-time passage, he was stunned when he saw the boundless sea of blood around him. Where was this? Was there such a place in the eastern continent? "Welcome to my world." A mocking voice sounded. The middle-aged man looked up and saw Qin Feiyang, white-eyed wolf, and Frenzy standing in the sky. Snowflake was also floating beside Qin Feiyang. The space-time passage was also quickly closing under Snowflake's control. "Who are you?" The middle-aged man frowned. For some reason, when he came here, he had a bad premonition in his heart. As for Qin Feiyang's "welcome to my world," he didn't take it to heart. Because many people like to call their own world in their own territory or spatial divine items. Is it important who we are? The important thing is that you're really easy to trick. It's so easy to trick you into coming here. White-eyed wolf looked at him playfully. "So what if I trick you into coming here? Do you think ants like you can kill me?" The middle-aged man took a step forward. A terrifying aura suddenly rushed toward them. Clang. Snowflake shook violently. A monstrous divine power appeared and collided with the middle-aged man's aura. Suddenly, a violent gale blew in this place, and a sea of blood surged. "You want to kill me with just a peak-level heaven-defying divine artifact? Naive." The middle-aged man's face was filled with disdain. A pinnacle-grade heaven-defying divine artifact was equivalent to a large success sovereign. But in comparison, heaven-defying divine artifacts were weaker. This was because hegemons at the level of mastery were in control of 4 types of laws. As for heaven-defying artifacts, although their power was comparable, they did not have an advantage in terms of laws. Therefore, if it was a real bloody battle, Snowflake might not be a match for the middle-aged man. But were there only snowflakes in the Black Tortoise realm? Of course not. There were more than a dozen peak-grade heaven-defying divine artifacts. If they were not strong enough, then they would rely on numbers. More than a dozen peak-grade heaven-defying divine artifacts were enough to crush the middle-aged man. Are you naive or am I? If I didn't have a certain amount of confidence, would I dare to let you come here? Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Stop trying to act all mysterious. The middle-aged man threw a punch at the snowflake, and the void here immediately began to collapse. Clang! Snowflake fully recovered and charged forward. A terrifying wave of battle instantly spread across the western region. It was as if the void was collapsing and the sky was trembling. It was as if doomsday had arrived. Oh no! Qin Feiyang's pupils constricted as he hurriedly released his perception. Then his expression changed. What's wrong? The madman and the white-eyed wolf were surprised. We underestimated the current snowflake. It is now a pinnacle-grade heaven-defying divine artifact, and its power is many times stronger than before. As for the Black Tortoise realm, although it has grown a lot over the years, it is now only comparable to the Divine Land. The western region is equivalent to the northern part of the Divine Land. Back then, when the Sunset Divine Bow was still a low-grade heaven-defying divine artifact, it fully recovered and could affect half of the northern region. Not to mention a pinnacle-grade heaven-defying divine artifact. If it doesn't stop, the other 3 regions will definitely be affected. Qin Feiyang said solemnly. What? The current Black Tortoise realm is only comparable to the Divine Land. The madman frowned. The growth rate of the Black Tortoise realm is already very fast, okay? Because the last time I saw it, it was only half the size of the Divine Land. Qin Feiyang said. That is indeed a bit of a miscalculation. We must end this quickly. The madman's eyes darkened. What are you doing? At this time, Brat appeared. His little face was full of anger. I'm a little embarrassed. 2 people and 1 wolf smiled embarrassedly. What nonsense. Brat looked at the middle-aged man and Snowflake, and then glared at Qin Feiyang, the madman and the white-eyed wolf. Then he waved his little hand, and a stream of origin energy suddenly descended from the sky, sealing off the entire western region. Qin Feiyang had been releasing his perception to check the situation around the western region. The moment the origin energy descended, the fluctuations of the battle were immediately sealed within the western region. Fortunately, Qin Feiyang breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, my ass. Do you know how much origin energy is wasted? Brat glared at Qin Feiyang angrily, and then summoned all the pinnacle-level heaven-defying artifacts. Sunset Divine Bow, Sky-Breaking Halberd, Thick Earth Shield, 7-Star Rod, White Jade Sword, Black Crow Fan, Golden Scale Sword, Demon-Breaking Hammer, God-Destroying Whip, Bloodblade. These were the top 10 heaven-defying artifacts of the dragons. There was also the Fire Lotus's heaven-defying artifact, Axe. There was also Mu Tianyang's heaven-defying artifact, Bloodblade. There was also the pinnacle-level heaven-defying artifact that the madman snatched from Yi Yuan's hands, the Slaughter Magic Sword. Together with Snowflake, there were a total of 14 pinnacle-level heaven-defying artifacts. Kill him for me. Brat pointed at the middle-aged man and roared. To cultivate in the land of Source, one must first get Brat's permission. Therefore, in the eyes of these heaven-defying artifacts, Brat had more prestige than Qin Feiyang. They didn't dare to have any thoughts of disobeying him. Following Brat's roar, the 13 heaven-defying artifacts immediately awakened and joined the battlefield, crazily beating the middle-aged man together with Snowflake. There are actually so many? The middle-aged man was also dumbfounded. A total of 14 pinnacle-level heaven-defying artifacts. What kind of joke was this? If he didn't see it with his own eyes, who would dare to believe that a few undead realm ants actually had 14 pinnacle-level heaven-defying artifacts? Ah! Screams continuously sounded. Facing absolute suppression, no matter what the middle-aged man did, he could only be beaten up. But in the blink of an eye, his entire body was covered in blood. Clang! A golden sword light shot over. The middle-aged man's eyes trembled. Why did this look a bit like Qin Feiyang's heaven-defying artifact? Back then, no matter if it was the battle between the madman and Yi Yuan, or the battle between Qin Feiyang and Yi Tian, the golden scale sword had appeared. So no one was unfamiliar with the golden scale sword. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance was also the same. Although many people hadn't seen it with their own eyes back then, they had all heard of it. There were even some people who used voice transmission godstones to record the battle back then. So everyone knew about the golden scale sword. That's right. That's it. When he saw the golden scale sword clearly, the middle-aged man's eyes trembled. Didn't that mean that the two people in front of him could be Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel his scalp go numb. Who in the Eastern continent didn't know that Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo had sovereign divine weapons? The fear and despair in his heart swept over him like a tide. Sovereign divine weapons. That was an insurmountable mountain. Not to mention him, even a peak dominator could only despair in the face of a sovereign divine weapon. In an instant, he didn't even have the courage to fight. The golden scale sword light was like a graceful swan as it directly entered the middle-aged man's lower abdomen. Ah! Accompanied by a painful scream, the middle-aged man's sea of chi shattered on the spot, and a bloody hole appeared in his lower abdomen, blood gushing out. Done. Little Wimp smiled proudly and shouted, "Withdraw your auras, all of you." As soon as he said that, the 14 peak level heaven-defying divine weapons immediately shut down, and their auras gradually dissipated. Why do they look like a pack of wolves? Qin Feiyang, Little Wimp, and the white-eyed wolf looked at each other. Originally, they wanted to fight a few rounds with this person to see how big the gap was. But they didn't expect that a group of heaven-defying divine weapons would take care of him so quickly. Although they had already expected that it would be a crushing defeat, this was too fast, wasn't it? It was as if they were beating up a child. Hurry up and deal with it. Also, don't do such stupid things in the future, or I'll throw all of you out. Little Wimp glared at Qin Feiyang, Little Wimp, and the white-eyed wolf. Understood, understood. The two men and the wolf nodded repeatedly. They were in the wrong and could only obediently take the scolding. Emph. Little Wimp snorted coldly and disappeared without a trace. But the 14 peak level heaven-defying divine weapons didn't leave, and surrounded the middle-aged man. The origin energy around the western region didn't dissipate either. Because the ripples from the battle were still there, if the origin energy were to dissipate now, the other three regions would still be destroyed. You are all peak-level heaven-defying divine weapons, you have self-respect, you have pride. Why do you have to submit to them? Especially you, Magic Sword Slayer. The middle-aged man lay in the void in a sorry state, looking weakly at the 14 heaven-defying divine weapons. Magic Sword Slayer was Yi Yuan's heaven-defying divine weapon, so he naturally recognized it. Magic Sword Slayer said calmly, "Because they have the capital to make us follow them wholeheartedly." Capital? Just because of the sovereign divine weapon? The middle-aged man glared at Magic Sword Slayer. "There are some things that you won't understand." Magic Sword Slayer replied calmly. "I don't understand, but I know that the vice leader won't let a traitor like you go." The middle-aged man roared. "Traitor? You're human. What right do you have to use our heaven-defying divine weapons?" Magic Sword Slayer's words were full of disdain. Fine, fine, fine. We don't have the right, but Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo do. Just be their lackey." The middle-aged man sneered. "You're courting death." Magic Sword Slayer was furious. A sword light appeared and rushed toward the middle-aged man with terrifying sharpness. "Don't kill him yet," Qin Feiyang said. Magic Sword Slayer was stunned. He quickly dispersed the sword light and asked suspiciously, "Why don't you kill him? He's still useful." Qin Feiyang walked in front of the middle-aged man and said with a smile, "Give me the universe ring." "What do you want?" The middle-aged man looked at Qin Feiyang warily. "Just give it to me. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Magic Sword Slayer yelled. The middle-aged man glared at Magic Sword Slayer, took off the universe ring, erased the blood contract, and handed it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang took the universe ring and dripped blood on it. He searched for a while and finally found the token. A smile appeared on his face. This was what he wanted. "Are there any other treasures inside?" The white-eyed wolf looked at the universe ring in Qin Feiyang's hand. "Take it and look for it yourself." Qin Feiyang threw the universe ring to the white-eyed wolf. He was not interested in anything else. Chapter 3105. White-eyed wolf grabbed the yin and yang ring and checked it expectantly. Madman glanced at the token in Qin Feiyang's hand and chuckled. Then we can easily enter the Alliance capital now. You want to go to the Alliance capital? The middle-aged man heard this and looked at the two in shock. Why? We can't go. Madman glanced at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man sized up the two and shook his head. I really admire your guts. Are you guys Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo? Isn't this obvious? Madman gave a mocking smile. It really is you guys. Why are you going to the Alliance capital? Are you here to reconcile? The middle-aged man was suspicious. Are you stupid? If we were here to reconcile, would we be so sneaky? Madman was speechless. Then what are you guys doing? The middle-aged man was bewildered. I am a bit confused. You are about to die and instead of worrying about yourself, you are worried about our goal. Are you really not afraid of death? Madman looked at the middle-aged man with an evil gaze. The middle-aged man shivered. That's right. He couldn't even protect himself, so why would he care about this? I am a very easy person to talk to. As long as you agree to follow me, I will let you live. Qin Feiyang smiled at the middle-aged man. Follow you? The middle-aged man was stunned and said in a deep voice, You want me to betray the Rogue Cultivator Alliance? Yes. I want you to betray the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. There is a good saying. A wise man submits to circumstances. It wasn't easy for you to reach the large success stage, so you should cherish your little life. I will give you 10 breaths of time to consider. Qin Feiyang said and looked at the middle-aged man silently. The middle-aged man looked at Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo, before looking at the 14-peak grade heaven, defying divine artifacts. His expression was filled with struggle. Although he had not come into contact with Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo, from the matter of them killing Yi Yuan, he could tell that they were not afraid of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. If he didn't agree, there would be no way for him to live today. Just as Qin Feiyang had said, it was indeed not easy to reach the level of a sovereign. It was incomparably difficult to thoroughly comprehend the power of every law. Who would be willing to die like this? However, if he really betrayed the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, he would definitely be hunted down and retaliated by the Rogue Cultivator Alliance in the future. As a senior figure of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, he understood the terror of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance better than anyone else. Once they found out that he had betrayed them, they would hunt him down endlessly. They might even implicate his family. He couldn't afford to pay such a price. 10 breaths are up. Give me an answer, Qin Feiyang said. Ooh. The middle-aged man took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes. Kill me. Qin Feiyang and the madman looked at each other. Are they really not afraid of death? I'm afraid of death, but I'm more afraid of implicating my family. Because my family is in the Alliance capital. If I were to join you, the Vice Alliance Master would not let my family off. The middle-aged man said expressionlessly. If he were to join Qin Feiyang, he and his family would be hunted down and retaliated against. If he were to die for his loyalty, although he would die, he could at least protect his family. Furthermore, seeing how loyal he was, the upper echelons of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance would definitely take care of his family in the future. After weighing the pros and cons, he chose to die himself. Qin Feiyang said in surprise, I didn't expect you to be a man who cares so much about his family. The middle-aged man said indifferently, Don't say so much. If you want to kill me, do as you wish. You have quite a backbone. All right. Qin Feiyang grabbed the slaughter magic sword and slashed at the middle-aged man's head. But even so, the middle-aged man didn't frown. The slaughter magic sword stopped above the middle-aged man's head and cut off a few strands of his hair. Sensing that the slaughter magic sword hadn't landed for a long time, the middle-aged man opened his eyes suspiciously and looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He put down the slaughter magic sword and said, What if I tell you that I can save your family? Save my family. The middle-aged man's heart trembled. If I save your family, will you serve me wholeheartedly? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. The middle-aged man nodded without hesitation. As long as he could save his family from disaster, he was willing to do anything. All right. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the slavery seal appeared and said, "Accept my control first, and when I enter the Alliance capital, I will bring your family to the Black Tortoise realm." However, hearing this, the middle-aged man hesitated, because once he was controlled by Qin Feiyang, what would happen in the future would not be something he could decide. "If you don't agree, I will kill you and tell the vice leader that you betrayed the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Although what I said is a lie, the vice leader will definitely take it seriously. At that time, your family will still not be able to escape death." Qin Feiyang said indifferently. "You," the middle-aged man glared at Qin Feiyang. "What? You want to scold me for being despicable?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "Not only despicable, you are simply shameless scum. You will die a horrible death," the middle-aged man roared. "You can scold me however you want, you have no choice anyway," Qin Feiyang said. The middle-aged man stared at Qin Feiyang, his eyes filled with helplessness and resentment. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the slavery seal immediately entered the middle-aged man's head. "Aren't you afraid that he will resist?" Frenzy was shocked. He is a family man, so he knows what to do, Qin Feiyang thought. Sure enough, the middle-aged man struggled for a moment before giving up, and the slavery seal was successfully completed. I have to remind you, the slavery seal can not only ignore distance and instantly erase your divine soul, but it can also peek into your inner thoughts, so you better not play any tricks. Qin Feiyang smiled. What? Ignore distance? Peek into your inner thoughts? The middle-aged man's face suddenly turned pale. He never thought that this kind of control secret technique would be so terrifying. Don't be so nervous. As long as you work for me wholeheartedly, not only will I not do anything to you, but I will also treat you as a friend. I am like this. If you treat me well, I will repay you 100 times, 1,000 times, but if you dare to go against me, then my means are not to be trifled with. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed coldly. I don't dare. The middle-aged man quickly shook his head, and his expression became respectful. All right, what's your name? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Zhao Yong. The middle-aged man hurriedly replied. The white-eyed wolf asked curiously, then Little Brave, what kind of laws have you grasped? Little Brave? The middle-aged man was stunned. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, to the people around him, the white-eyed wolf calls him that. To him, this is a kind of affectionate name. The middle-aged man smiled bitterly. This could be called affectionate? I have grasped the laws of wind, force, darkness, light. And now, I have comprehended the law of water. And I have comprehended the first profound. Zhao Yong spoke with a trace of pride between his brows. Having grasped 5 types of laws, he indeed had the qualifications to be proud. Then, when you completely comprehend the law of water, will you be able to break through to perfect dominator? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes. Zhao Yong nodded. A quasi-perfect dominator. In that case, we can be considered to have picked up a big bargain? Qin Feiyang looked at the madman and the white-eyed wolf in astonishment. It is indeed a big bargain. The madman nodded with a smile. Since Zhao Yong had already grasped the law of water, it was only a matter of time before he stepped into perfect dominator. You are indeed not bad. But don't think that just because you have the qualifications to step into perfect dominator, you can bare your fangs and brandish your claws in front of us. What we need is companions and support, not someone who thinks he is infallible. In short, for someone who can't be of the same mind as us, even if he is a peerless monster, I won't care. Qin Feiyang looked at Zhao Yong and warned. Yes. Zhao Yong hurriedly withdrew his arrogant expression. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, besides, you don't have the qualifications to be arrogant in front of us. When Zhao Yong heard this, he was somewhat unconvinced. It was fine to talk about other things, but when it came to this, why didn't he, who grasped 5 types of laws, have the qualifications to be arrogant? You want to know? Look at my senior brother, he is only at the small success imperishable realm, but he has already grasped 4 types of laws. When he breaks through to the large success dominator, what kind of achievements do you think he will have? Qin Feiyang pointed at the madman and said indifferently. What? You have grasped 4 types of laws? Zhao Eryong looked at the madman in shock. Didn't he hear that this kid only grasped the law of slaughter? What you have seen and heard is only the tip of the iceberg. Do you know how many types of laws old Qin has grasped? If I say it, you will be scared to death. He has grasped 7 types of laws. The madman had a look of contempt. 7. Zhao Eryong's expression froze as he looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. 7 types of laws? Heavens, is he still human? Other youngsters only began to comprehend the power of laws after stepping into perfect imperishable realm. But these 2 youngsters in front of him, one grasped 4 types of laws, and the other grasped 7 types of laws. What were those so-called monstrous geniuses famous in the Eastern continent in front of these 2? Dog fart. Terrifying. To be able to comprehend so many types of laws at such a young age. His future achievements were unimaginable. Only then did he realize what kind of people the vice leader had offended. If they were to grow up, not to mention their rogue cultivator alliance, even the demon hall wouldn't be able to stop their sharpness. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.